waiting for me to get on here. That's so cool of you guys to hang out and wait for me. Um, Great November Friday. Love this type of weather. This is my favorite time of year because the mushrooms pop this time of year. And up here in the Pacific Northwest, we are big into our mycology and studying mushrooms, picking mushrooms for a hobby. That is something that I look forward to every year. And last weekend, we went up and took a look at the hills. There was a few chanterelles, a couple of lobster mushrooms, nothing too exciting, but this weekend ought to do a lot better. So I'm looking forward to going and picking a bunch of chanterelles tomorrow. Hopefully, we do quite well. Thought I'd talk a little bit about lumber because I know you guys love the lumber stuff. Pretty much the same thing that I had been saying last week. The inventory levels are starting to drop, and the mills are curtailing development up in the British Columbia area. It's not big announcements yet, but there is definite issues taking place. And as far as the inventory levels, they are going to find themselves depleted if the conditions continue on the way they are. Prices down at the 450 per thousand mark. Most of the mills don't really want to operate at 450 per thousand. They would much rather be operating at 500 per thousand or more. Once you get down to the 400 per thousand mark, really the input cost going into these mills doesn't really give them a whole lot of room to profit at 400 per thousand, especially up in the British Columbia area where they are high cost, high output producers. Now, I did hear somebody in the comments section say something about how the stumpage fees are going to drop soon, and how the input cost going into these Canadian mills is going to drop, and therefore they would be able to produce at the lower prices and then fill the inventory levels up again. That's still questionable. We'll find out later if that actually takes place. Personally, what I am seeing through the lumberyard that I work at, still have yet to see the 2x6 pressure treated decking come in. The treated deck boards that are typically used for just your standard old deck, but it doesn't have the incisor marks, so it's treated lumber, but not with the incisor marks, rated for more of an exposed, exposed use, appearance grade. So that stuff has been out of stock. I have not been able to source that out for a little over a month now, and it doesn't seem to be any source coming in next week either. So that's pretty interesting. Talking also with the pressure treated guy, asking him about his plate stock, because that's one of the things that I ask about as far as an indicator on the new home builds, because he sells a lot of the plate stock to the big builders. Now, when we're talking plate stock, usually we're referring to the pressure treated 2x material that goes down on the foundation before the rest of the framing goes up. That would be the plate stock. And if you're selling a lot of that, you know that you're about ready to go into a lot of framing material that you're going to sell too, because that's like the start of the house. And he's telling me that there's not a lot of plate stock going out right now, which is kind of a scary indicator when you think about like new home builds coming into the future. So anyway, that's going on with the lumber update. Like I said, if you are interested in getting lumber or looking for the best price in your framing packages, now is the time to do it. I could not tell you what the prices are going to be like after the new year, because I feel that after the new year, we're going to start seeing the prices moving up quite dramatically. The November lumber contract closes on the 15th, so that's just next week. It doesn't look to me like we're going to see a spike in prices before that happens. So that's going to leave a lot of cheap lumber in the system for, quite a while. And like I said, if that's the case, then probably we're going to start seeing the inventory tighten up even more, and then the prices go back up. And like I said, I think that's probably going to happen towards the beginning of the year. I thought the prices would have moved up by now, but I kind of have a tendency to think of these things happening a lot faster than they really do. Especially if it's like new information to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening like right now. We got to start moving. But really, this stuff takes time. It takes a long time to kind of work through the system. So anyway, that's the lumber update video. Earlier today, I did a video kind of just babbling on about some of the economic conditions that are happening, and I left the links down in the description of this video to the same video that I had done earlier, the same links that I had done earlier. But anyway, there's some good stuff inside of there, things to look at, and to try and wrap your head around what's going on with the inflation and the consumers that are taking place here in the United States, because the lifting of interest rates was going to put a burden on the consumer, and hopefully that would slow the consumering down, the consumerism, right? Can slow that consuming down. And if that takes place, then hopefully the prices would start to rise, or stop rising and start to come down again. That was the whole point of it all. Now, whether or not we actually see that is another thing. Let me turn that light on for you guys so you can actually see. So that's kind of like the whole idea behind it all. Now, I had a tendency to believe that it was more of a supply chain breakdown, and once the mandates came to an end, like the lifting of mandates, that we would start seeing more stuff start flowing through the economy, and that would start bringing the prices down. We would see the inflation start to start to peak out and then find its way the other direction. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it like moving the other direction, but a lot of people are saying that the inflation has peaked out and that it's not going to be running as hot going into the future. I mean, it's still running hot in my opinion, so I don't know what people are thinking as far as good news goes, because like at 6.5% or 7% or 5%, that's hot inflation. I mean, so until it gets down to around the 2 or 3%, it's not anything to be like excited about. Like, this isn't any kind of churning. It's just going from 70 miles an hour down to 60 miles an hour or whatever. It's not like good times are ahead. It's not even close to that. Although the markets feel that way, because once they hear that the inflation is going to come down, then they think, okay, well, now the Federal Reserve is going to reverse course on their lifting of interest rates or on their interest rate hiking policies, and we're going to start seeing interest rates come back down. That's not even the case. That's not even going to happen. And so when people have this idea that that's what's going to happen, it's not. I mean, the Federal Reserve is going to keep the interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time. They promised us pain. We have yet to see it. So when the pain comes, then maybe we can start talking about interest rates coming down. But until then, I just don't see it happening. All right, 300 of you up in here, please go and hit that like button, that thumbs up. That'll get the video to spread around YouTube more, and we'll get more people up into the comment section. Just watch a scary movie. Yeah, no kidding. I'm in, where is it? In Georgia? That's why I was surprised by his West Coast daylight. Oh, yeah. Well, it's not going to last too much longer. It's almost out of here. Right on. Look at all those thumbs up. Keep hitting them, guys. So one of the other things that I've been trying to keep an eye on is the containers. That was like the biggest issue that everybody noticed right away, is that these container prices were just shooting, like just skyrocketing, coming from China going over to the West Coast here of the United States. And now we're seeing those container prices, the shipping prices, drop dramatically. I think there was something like a 70% drop in the price of shipping a container from China to the United States. I mean, that's incredible. It's like return to normal again, right? Not quite, but a significant drop. And then the piling up of these containers, that was something I knew was going to take place. And that's a definite sign that there is issues happening. I mean, if those containers are piling up, that means people are not placing orders. There's nothing being shipped. And the worst part about it is that they're piling up here in the United States. That means that our exports are not happening, because pretty much you use those containers to export back out of the United States. And if they keep piling up here, that means that we're not exporting stuff. So that's another indicator to keep an eye on. Speak about AURUM. I don't know, send me some information about it and I'll talk about it. I'm a bit happy the market is up, but I know the market will drop about 5 to 10%. It's probably going to drop. I mean, I couldn't tell you what the percentage of drop it's going to be, but it's going to continue. I mean, you think about it, the Federal Reserve is, even if they were to stop the lifting of interest rates and just stall out, like keep the Fed funds at the current level, they're still in their balance sheet unwinding. Like, they're still allowing the treasuries and mortgage-backed securities to roll off the balance sheet. That is really where the bigger issue is, because that's monetary tightening. That's Federal Reserve dollars coming back to the Federal Reserve that essentially gets destroyed. I mean, you think about it, when the Federal Reserve buys a treasury, they print up money. They don't really print it, but they print up money, and then they buy this bond. And then when the bond matures, then the Federal Reserve gets that money back. Unless they roll that over into new debt, then it just gets destroyed. And that's monetary tightening taking place. And this is the major problem that we're starting to find, not necessarily here in the United States, but definitely outside of the United States. I was reading an article, in fact, I think I left that article down in the description, to a restaurant in Australia that I think had the prices hiked up due to the strengthening dollar, if I'm getting this right, which made the burgers at this restaurant in Australia like super expensive. It was like this typical burger that would be like 10, 12 bucks or whatever was selling for like $22. And it made me wonder, it was just like, is this the strengthening dollar that's causing these burgers outside of the United States over at these fast food chains in these foreign countries to go up? And I'm thinking that's the case right there. It didn't say that in the article, but I thought that was a pretty interesting story to find out there. And that's really where the major problem is going to be. It's not necessarily here in the United States, it's outside of the United States. And even though you see the dollar index dropping, it's down at like 106 today, that's just it's temporary. We're going to see the dollar get much stronger from here, especially if the Federal Reserve continues on with their monetary policy. There is no hinting from the Federal Reserve that they're going to do anything other than continue to keep the tight monetary policies going. Hey, right on, Matthew. Right on. Lumberjack Landlord. The biggest patriot on YouTube. Right on. Appreciate you, Simon. Adjustable rate mortgages have gone from 2% of the market to in 2020 to 14% in 2022. More pain and banks making bad products. Yeah, I have to tell you, Matthew, my mom is really addicted to your channel right now. She was into real estate there for quite some time and had a few rental properties going and stuff. And one of the things that she has told me, and straight up honest, I mean, I'm not just, stroking the ego or anything. She told me straight up, she says, man, if she had it all to do over again, she would have been listening to you, Matthew. She would have totally listened to your guidance, your recommendations, your suggestions, everything that you were doing on your channel. She would have been paying a lot more attention to. So if you're in the real estate market, you're looking into getting into rentals, follow the Lumberjack Landlord. My mom could not recommend it anymore. She knows she was in the game at one time. I want to be in the game at some point, so I'm following Lumberjack Landlord for the same reasons. And I mean, I can't talk enough good stuff about it. So. I'm in Fresno. You must be too, Lumberjack Landlord. No, he's over on the East Coast. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thanks, Mrs. UE. Yeah, you bet. Like I said, when I stopped. Even when I went home for lunch today, she was reading One Rental at a Time. She was like, "This is really good." And I'm like, "I know, Mom. I got to read the thing." All right, who's winning in the midterms? I don't know. I don't care. I don't pay attention to politics. Like that was one of the reasons why I think I don't know. Like my channel hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention like over the last few days or the last couple of weeks because everybody's so focused in on politics and that's all they want to talk about and listen to is politics, and I'm just not into it. I actually had a guy get mad at me the other day because I told him, I said, you don't really need to follow that stuff. It's not really that important. And of course he argued big time against it, and of course everybody has their opinion on it. And I said, well, really, you need to study the money. You just need to study the economy. You need to study the flow of the flow of money, the interest rates, the central banking, what they're up to. That's the more important part. The politic kind of part of things is just a bunch of noise. And I kind of related it down to eating food. You can eat a bunch of junk food all the time, and that's really like what mainstream media is. I mean, you got like the junk food, like whatever the hell a Kardashian is, like that's junk, right? And then you got like the semi-entertaining junk, like, sports or Dancing with the Stars or something like that. Then you got that kind of junk food going on. And then you got it starts getting into the realm of something that's kind of healthy and useful. Like, you start getting into politics and maybe the war and maybe a story of something like a feel-good story or something, some personal interest story. So then you're kind of a little bit higher up on the junk food, and then you get into economics, and that's like the health food. That's like the healthiest thing that you could possibly intake, right? And if you take all that stuff in, even though it's kind of depressing for you, it doesn't taste very good, and it's not really exciting or anything like that, it is by far the healthiest thing that you can take in because all the rest of that stuff is a bunch of junk, right? So if you're taking that stuff in and then you take in a little bit of economics, you're wondering, well, how come I'm not doing well or I'm not healthy? It's because you got all this other junk that you're taking in. Just study economics. You don't need anything else. Politics is pointless. Let the other people worry about that. It's not like it's going to change, right? Your vote's not going to change anything about what those people are doing. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay attention because if you really enjoy that stuff, that's cool. But then I guess you really like to be stressed out and pissed off at your neighbor, I'm from Poland and we have normal sugar in Coca-Cola. Well, you can get Coca-Cola here with normal sugar in it, Pepsi too, but you know, you have to pay a little bit more for it and you have to look for it, but it does exist, you know. Economics isn't as bad as health food. It's you know, it's boring, it doesn't taste very good, it's not exciting, nobody else likes it, you know. So you're like, no, it's good, here, try it. Yeah, and everybody's like, ugh, not for me. All right. I'm a young blue collar professional and I see many young folks doing jobs where they do less but make a lot more. What do you think will happen to trades during economic decline? Is there hope? Yeah, during economic decline, the cream rises to the top, right? Only the best survive. And then if you got people who have skills and they're sitting in a downturn and there's not a whole lot of work out there, those who do the best for the cheapest price, they're the ones who survive, right? I mean, if you can, I'm not saying that everybody should work cheaply. I'm just saying that if you want the job, you're going to have to, you know, settle for less money. And if you do it really good, then you'll get the job and other people will hire you. So during an economic downturn, you're not looking for like the most profitable way of making money. I mean, especially if you got one of the trades that you're, you know, you're trying to work one of the trades, you're trying to go for opportunity, like, and that comes from, you know, again, providing the best deal for, you know, the best price, most quality. And those people will succeed. Everybody else is going to fail, especially if they're overextended. Like that's the biggest thing. Like I've seen many fly-by-night contractors or, you know, people who are in the building industry where they start off like they get a couple of jobs and then they take out like this massive amount of debt and they buy like new trucks, new clothing, like they get this image thing, like all these labels and logos and all this crap. And it doesn't, I mean, I guess it does help for the image as far as maybe like selling to try and get more jobs into the future, but that does nothing for quality and pricing, right? I mean, all that stuff is a bunch of flashy stuff that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I've seen some of the best framers that I know, guys who frame houses. They drive like little crappy little pickup trucks that are full of empty beer cans, and their tools don't look like they work very well, but their job that they do is by far the best, right? So it doesn't really matter what the contractor looks like. It's a matter of their skills. But unfortunately, a lot of these contractors put that image out there because that's how they sell their jobs, right? Is because they have this big image or this big flashy truck or whatever. Then the downturn comes, they can't get the jobs, they can't make the payments on those trucks, and then their company goes out of business. I've seen it so many times. Yeah. Get a government job. The castle fails last. Contractors living on deposits of tomorrow's jobs. Yeah, and that's why I ended up like quitting doing construction for some guys, because that was the problem, is that they always needed the next job in order to pay you. Like they needed to sell the next job in order to get your paycheck for the current job that you're working on, and that doesn't, like, that's not the way it's supposed to work. That's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and a lot of them do it that way. Stealing material from other jobs too. I hate that. All right. Neighbor's contractor pulled up in a Corvette. No joke. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, during the booming times, it seems like it's never going to end. And that's one of the things that we had talked about in our, you know, stability video, is that people just think that, man, we're just like, this is just never going to end. We're going to be able to, you know, sell these jobs, make this kind of money every year from now on. It's only going to be this way. And nobody prepares themselves for a downturn. Like, you know, for me personally, like when I started getting the YouTube revenue coming in, the first thing I did was get out of debt. Like that was my main number one goal, was to get rid of the credit card debts, get rid of the student loans, all the family, all the medical, all that shit, that goes away. Right? That was the very first thing I did. And then after that, I did not increase my standard of living. Like I didn't go out and buy fancy things or cars or clothing or start taking, like, you know, exotic trips or something like that. I actually kept my standard of living at the same as if I had only my day job, right? If I lost YouTube, my life would continue on. If I lost my day job, my life would continue on because I got YouTube. So I kind of got like two jobs going. but I didn't increase my standard of living. I kept that the same, and I made my savings grow dramatically. So that's really the mental attitude that nobody has when it comes to the average American. Like, most people live paycheck to paycheck, and they never take any consideration of what it's going to be like if they don't even have a paycheck. Like, if they can't even miss one paycheck, not one. And if they did, then their whole life is just like completely turned upside down, and they don't know what they're going to do about it. And they live this way for like ever. Like, this is the way they live. Like, I mean, of course I live that way too, but the amount of stress that you have when you live that way, it's unreal. Like, it weighs very heavy on you. So the moment that you get out of debt, it, like, stay out. Like, don't worry about the clothes, don't worry about the trips, don't worry about the fancy stuff. Just stay out of debt. Live your frugal life and make a savings, and your life feels so much better. Like, you don't stress about anything, you don't stress about the bills. If you miss a paycheck, or if something like that happens, it's not going to turn your world upside down. I mean, it might suck or whatever, but it's not the end of the world. That's really the behavior that a lot of Americans are not taking on. They don't even close come to that. I mean, most of them are like, I mean, I kid you not, I've heard people say, I get paid in a couple of days, I have $20 to spend. And I'm like, oh, you got 2 days till you get paid, you got $20. Why don't you see if you can save it until payday? Like, you don't have $20 to spend, you got $20 to save, but they don't see it that way. Yeah. Anyway, what are you guys talking about? All right, you'll own nothing and be happy. I already own nothing. People keep saying that. I don't really own anything. So what are you getting at, man? I mean, that statement is only for those who choose to be guided, or choose to be led, or choose to follow, right? I mean, that doesn't, you'll own nothing and be happy doesn't apply to me, right? I already own nothing and I'm happy, right? Whatever, okay? I'm going to continue on with my life. If I want the things that I want in life, I'm going to go for it. And there ain't no entity out there, no government, nobody else out there is going to tell me I can or can't do it, right? I have the Constitution on my side. That's the only thing I study. I don't give a shit about any other laws, all right? That's just the constitutional rights that I have. And I abide by those. I abide by the ordinances that I am aware of, that I know, like, carrying firearms and stuff like that. I pay attention to those things. But as far as you'll own nothing and be happy, yeah, screw those guys. I am not afraid of them. I am not afraid of the elitists. Come get me. Let's do it, All right. A penny earned is a penny saved. That's right. I mean, here's the thing. I've seen people throw pennies away. I do it every day. I do retail sales. You know how many people, like, literally not just the pennies, but all the coins, just drop it on the table and say, I don't want that? And I'm like, do you not realize how damaging that is to you mentally? By taking the pennies, those change, and say, bam, and throw it onto the counter and say, I don't want that. You know what that does to you? What it does is it changes your subconscious into believing that you don't like money, or you don't want money, or you don't need money, or money isn't worth anything to you. And so guess what? Money starts leaving you. And all of a sudden, you don't have the easy flowing money like you once had, because your subconscious is telling you you don't want it, because you throw those coins away. I pick up every penny. When they say, hey, do you want your penny in the change? Damn right I want my penny. I want all of it. I want all the money, everything. If I see money laying on the ground, I pick it up. And you know what my subconscious says? This dude likes money and he wants it, and he's going to get it. And that's what I do. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a penny, I'll go pick it up, right? I don't need a penny. I mean, got hundreds of pennies. What difference does it make? It's the point of making sure that your subconscious knows that you want that, right? And it'll go for it. Your stuff shouldn't define you. Want less and you'll be happier. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what it is that, I mean, I can understand, like, driving and, like, I want that new Camaro, right? I want to drive it. It'd be awesome, right? But, like, what would be the point of that? Like, other than feeling good for 10 minutes driving the car, am I supposed to, like, buy it so I look good for other people? Like, I think I look pretty good already. Like, my 99 Toyota Corolla isn't that ugly. I guess it is, but it's it's not the point of it. It's like, what people really enjoy is a magnetic positive energy. That's what people really want. That's what they want out of other people is magnetic positive energy. They can care less what you like, what you own, whatever, all that stuff. They don't care about that. What they want is a positive magnetic energy out of you, and that's it. That's the only thing people want. Your car is awesome. Yeah, it is. My car is awesome. What matters most? It's what's inside. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. I'm way happier with paid off house at 35, a freezer full of beef, and a stack of silver. See? Simple things, right? Don't need much. Paid off house, freezer full of food, stack of silver. He's good, right? No worries. And that's like, what else do you need? I mean, after that, everything else is just kind of luxury stuff. I mean, this is the stuff that you need to survive. And after that, it's just like, whatever, take it or leave it, right? Mom used to say, want in one hand and spit in the other. Which one fills up first? Yeah, and well, that's the thing. Like, the term want is very interesting to think, because I'm learning now that want really is coming from lacking. Like, if you want something, you lack it, right? And if you lack it, then you need it, and need is a negative energy, right? So if you have this want, you have this need, and this need is this negative energy. And if you have a negative energy towards it, then what you want actually moves away from you because you want it. And it's so odd to think, like, if you really want something, you have to let go of the idea of having it. And that's such a far off concept for most people, because they so desperately want something in their life. The idea of like thinking that I don't want it, or to let it go, or to say, like, I'm okay with not having this, or whatever, that kind of phrase, it's so difficult for people to understand, especially when they have a desire for it. But that's really what it comes from. If you want to draw whatever it is towards you, whether it's money or a good job or a relationship or whatever, you have to have this energy that's not coming from a needy place, right? You can't have this needy energy. And so if you have a want, then you have a need, and that need is a negative energy. So you have to, like, basically distance yourself from the idea of wanting whatever it is that you want in your life, which is kind of weird to think. But that's really the case. Like, when I wanted to, like, they asked me, like, I was asked, what's one of your goals? And I said, I would love to have a YouTube channel that is popular enough that I can engage in a conversation and earn a little bit of money from it. Like, I didn't even have like a goal of how much money I wanted. The goal was $100. So it was just like, I want to earn 100, because that was the minimum threshold for Google to pay you. So that was my goal, was $100. But really my goal was I wanted to make videos every day and have, basically get paid for it, and not necessarily make a living, but just to earn money from it. And I had this, like, it wasn't necessarily a want. I mean, I wanted it, but I didn't really think of it as like, man, I desire this in my life. It was just this kind of idea that I had. What I wanted to do was commit myself to making videos every day. That was very difficult. Once I did start making videos every day, videos just became natural for me. I could just do it every day. Sometimes I could do it twice a day. And so this is where, like, the transferring from like that want over to you are. This is just who it is. And it was like, it wasn't that want that I wanted. It was the goal of, like, doing a video every day and getting paid for it. And that was it. Eventually things just started landing into place, right? The subconscious picks this up, and it starts providing you with the things that you need in order to, achieve those type of goals that you had put in your mind. And then the money started flowing after that. So it was just like, that's how things are acquired in your life. I mean, it's strange to think, but if you really want it, you have to let go of the idea of having it, and then that negative energy would dissipate, and then the thing can flow towards you. It's strange. All right, no one is above another. That is so true. That is so absolutely true. And that's something that I found a lot of people, like, especially in sales, like, you learn that in sales, because you cannot judge a book by its cover. You never know who's walking through that door with a pocket full of money ready to dump it on you. I have done some big sales with people who look like they have just crawled out of the gutter. I mean, their clothes are ripped up, they stink, whatever. And yet they have a major project that they're doing on their property, and they're an old fisherman, working mechanics, doing whatever, and like they're ready to dump $35,000 on you to build their new shop or whatever it is that they got going on. Never, like, nobody is above anybody else. Never judge a book by its cover. Never think that that you're smarter than anybody else, because I have, like, I first of all, I never think I'm smarter than anybody else, because but but I never look like judge a book by its cover. Somebody walks through the door, I'm going to treat them just the same as the next person is, no matter what. I think I learned that from my mom, my stepmom. She used to tend bar, and I'd watch her tend bar. And she was kind of mean at times. Like, she was very, like, very stern is the only way I can kind of describe her. But she would always treat everybody exactly like, if you were next in line, it didn't matter who was there or how much they were going to spend or whatever. The next person was getting theirs, right? I mean, if it was, some stinky bum looking for a beer, or if it was like, some high class business guy with all his business people there trying to, tie one on for the night, she would always treat everybody exactly the same, with the same amount of respect. And I always appreciated that out of her, because, it was watching that and learning that skill itself was probably one of the better things that helped me out as far as working sales when I got older. All right. He was the stinky bum not too long ago. Yeah, I kind of was, although I never really, like, I don't know, maybe I did. I probably stank a couple of times. Okay. My favorite proud moment ever was walking into a Toyota dealership at 23 after smoking weed and trading stocks all day with a long ass hair, and bought a 21 Tundra for cash. Yeah, that was probably a good fun day for you. Yeah. Get your candles and batteries stocked up, amongst many other things. Yeah, I've always suggested canning supplies. I think canning supplies is probably going to be the best thing that you could do to try and prepare for what I feel is going to be some pretty severe food shortages. And it's not necessarily going to be food shortages. In fact, my friend asked me about food shortages today and said what that's going to look like. Is everybody going to be, starving and stuff? And you're going to find, like, some major issues outside of the United States. Here in the United States, I don't think we'll have too much to worry about as far as, like, not having food available. The problem with it is it's going to be very expensive. It's going to get, so costly. And so I've made the suggestion for people to stock up on canning supplies, because you never know when you're going to come into an abundance of something. I mean, if your buddy, is big into fishing or something like that, and he comes back with 100 pounds of fish, if you got the canning supplies, you can can that stuff up and preserve it for years. And so being prepared in that fashion, I think, is going to be much more useful than storing up on, like, a year's worth of food. Like, because then you have all this food you have to consume. And now, like, my wife, she's really good at it. So, like, if she buys a ton of food, she's going to buy stuff that we are going to eat, and we will eat it. Like, I mean, we have stocked up on a lot of food at times, just to make sure that we had prepared, for, maybe a particular, storm is coming or something like that. So we get prepared in that fashion. And if we buy a huge abundance of food, it's stuff that we eat. So we'll go through it again and then deplete it down and then restock up again. But canning supplies, that's the way to go, because if you have a year's worth of food, you have to take all that food with you, and that's not exactly easy to do. And it has to be preserved, and you have to protect it from, like, whatever, like, whether mold issues or rats or something, I mean, you got to protect your food. But if you just got jars and lids and rings, that doesn't take up a lot of space. You can reuse the jars. The lids and rings don't take up a whole lot of room, and that way you can be preserving food on a regular basis. And to me, that, like, if you're looking for a way to prepare for the food shortages, that's it. Learn to can. Get a pressure cooker, get a bunch of canning supplies, and practice. I mean, go down to the store, buy some chicken, and can it up. Just, practice doing it. All right, my brother wants me to buy a car that'll probably be useless by next year, and I instead bought some silver with the overtime I got. Well, I think buying silver is going to be a much better position to be in as opposed to buying a new car. Now, don't get me wrong, a new car is nice. And like I said, I would love to have a new Camaro that I can drive around for 10 minutes a day. But having a silver and having the security and the insurance that goes with it, in my opinion, far better. I mean, you can always cash the silver in and go buy a car, but you're not going to always be able to get the silver. And there's going to come a day when you won't be able to get the silver, and the price of that silver is going to be very expensive. Um, I'm not counting on that day, but there will be a day like that. Have you, thank you very much, Ron, for the $2 super chat. Appreciate that, man. Have you prepared for the economic downturn? Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the point of this channel, was to prepare for the economic downturn. Now, what is it we need to do, or what you need to do, or what, the other viewers of this video need to do, is going to be very different from each other. I mean, you may need to get into silver. Somebody else may be like, man, I'm stacked on silver. I need to get my canning supplies, or I need to load up on firearms because there's issues with firearms now. And as far as you know, getting ammunition, getting, high capacity magazines, all this stuff is going to be very difficult going into the future. And I made that suggestion. Your time to prepare in that video, your time to prepare is gone. I told people then, like, go get a 1022. A Ruger 1022 rifle is a very simple firearm. It's easy to use. The rounds are cheap. You can pack loads of ammunition just in your front pockets of your jeans. A 1022 is by far the most useful firearm that I could think anybody, if they were ever going to just buy a single firearm, that would be the one. Like, that one would do it. It's not a huge, caliber firearm or something like that, but it's enough that it'll stop somebody from coming through the front door, and it'll kill a deer, if you know how to shoot. So to me, like, those are the things that you really need to prepare for. As far as like economics, like, putting your money in the right place, hell, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where that's supposed to be. I mean, some people think real estate's the way to go. I wouldn't necessarily try to protect myself from an economic downturn by getting into real estate, simply because if you ever needed a little bit of money, how do you get it off of your land? Like, unless you are producing something off your land, if you need to sell some of your land, how do you do that? You need to take out like an equity loan or something like that. So getting into land to protect yourself from an economic downturn, I don't know. That, I mean, if the land is self-sustaining, something like that, maybe. But to me, like, being prepared for an economic downturn means getting out of that third party. Silver, cryptocurrencies, firearms, canning supplies, stuff like that. Anything that has to be away from that third party. And that's the way you deal with the economic downturn. Because really, what is the economic downturn? It's somebody's promise to pay that they're not going to do. That's what it comes down to. Somebody has promised to pay you, and they're not going to pay you. And that's it. And then the whole thing starts to unwind from there. Now, I mean, it's not like just one person, right? But it's enough people out there. And basically that's like bankruptcies and defaults. That's going to be the downturn in the economy. So who is going to pay you and who isn't? That's up to you to figure out. Like, I'm not going to take that chance. That's why I go into silver, right? Silver is away from the third party. After that, that's the insurance policy. Now you got to take your chances. You got to take risk, and are you going to risk getting into a particular company, like getting into stock? Are you going to take risk by, buying into rental properties or something like that? I mean, who knows what the appropriate way is going to go? Like, I mean, I honestly think that getting into rental properties is probably going to be one of the better places to be in a long run position. Like, if you're looking for the long run, something that is going to be like the place to be, I would think real estate. I would think real estate and rental incomes would be the place to go. And I mean, I personally, like, am kind of scared of real estate. I mean, I took a huge hit back in 07 when I tried to buy a house and then ended up failing and losing the house to foreclosure. That took a lot out of me. So when it comes to like real estate, I am incredibly cautious with the whole idea of it. But because I want to be an investor and be good at what I'm doing, I'm positioning myself right now so that I could take advantage of a real estate deal if the right one comes up. And I'm moving into that kind of line of thinking. Like, I'm going that way. just because it just seems to me to be the best opportunity. Now, I could be wrong on that, and I might change my tune here in the next few months or something like that, but as of right now, that's the direction I'm going. Um, at some point we're going to start seeing the stock market rise again. I have a feeling it's going to continue to go down for a while, at least as long as the monetary tightening has taken place. I think the market is going to continue to go down. Um, there could be some changes to that. Like, if the world starts really going into economic crisis, then the United States is the safe haven. They might find themselves pouring into the United States stock market, and you'd find the stocks rising, even though the rest of the world is, going to hell in a handbasket. That could very well happen. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could. I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't. It's just the perception of the people and where they need to go with it. Now, as far as again, how do you protect yourself from an economic downturn? You got to in my opinion, you got to be away from a third party. And then if you're not going to be away from a third party, you're going to invest with somebody, you better really know who you're invested with. I wouldn't take any shots in the dark, that's for sure. Anyway, did I get a huge super chat there? Who sent that? TMC, man. Thank you so much for the $100, man. That is very nice of you, dude. Love this conversation. I'm an old fart now, but started life over at 35 years old. We never bought a house, saved half our salary, and never went into debt. We just retired and have more wealth than I ever dreamed. Life is good when you don't have to go into debt. Yeah, and that's something that I have said many times, man, is that a lot of people, they look at rent as throwing your money away, right? Now, I'm not, I mean, you guys have heard my, spiel on that a bunch of times, right? But I've said that. I said I would rather be nimble. I would rather have no ties to any one location. I would rather be 100% in assets and have zero liabilities. Even if you're renting, you only have 30 days worth of liabilities. After 30 days, if you don't make the payment, you move. They don't come and take everything you own. You don't lose your entire livelihood, right? That's what happened to me when I couldn't make my payment on my house. So that's what I have said. I said that many times. Now, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of these guys who are out there who are these kind of loudmouth dudes. But Andrew Tate is pretty cool dude, right? I mean, he gets real excited on a lot of stuff, but I heard him say the exact same thing. Renting is for the poor, right? The rich don't rent, or the rich don't buy, they rent. So that the renting part of things, I mean, he didn't say rent's for the poor. Buying is for the poor. Renting is for the rich. He says that he is nimble, that he would rather be able to travel from country to country to make his money and not be tied down to any one place and to be in assets. Now, this is somebody who has an insane amount of money, right? Who is saying this, that renting is a waste, right? Or not renting, buying is a waste, that you should rent, right? And again, I had the same thought about it. Buying property is okay, right? There's nothing wrong with it. And, even buying a house that you're going to live in, right? Because you got to have some place to live. But that's it, the goal in your mind is to own that house, right? You want to retire, you want to have a retirement, you want to have your place to live, the place you're living in paid for. That's what you're pushing for, right? Well, then that's a good thing, right? You go to work every day, right? You got your 40 hours a week that you're doing. You got your retirement fund. You contribute to that just regularly, right? And you don't deviate from that plan. You show up every day for work. You make your contributions. You make your house payment. And then when you turn 65, you retire, or 70, whatever it is. And then you retire and you sit back and you say, look at what all my hard work has done. That is the way that most people go about it, right? Or should go about it. And you don't have to really think about it. You just have to go to work and you just have to stick to that plan. Okay. Now, if you really want to make it big, if you want to do something extreme, you don't work for somebody every day, right? You don't fall in that line where you're going to make your house payment and you're going to contribute to a retirement fund. What you do is something quite extreme. You do something that is beyond belief, right? You go out there and you start massive businesses, big things, right? You do things that are not the 9-to-5 job mindset, right? you go and you make it huge. When you do that, that's the time that you don't need to have like assets that are tightening you down, like a location, right? What you need are assets that pay you on a regular basis. And if you get assets that just pay you on a regular basis, everything turns into free, right? That's the way Andrew Tate talks about it. He has so much money now that he doesn't think about the cost of it, but just thinks about whether or not he wants it, right? That's an incredible position to be in. I would love to be in that position someday. I mean, but right now you have to budget and you have to think about your money and you have to think about where it's going. But if you ever had it to the point where money is no longer an object, where you don't think about how much it costs, but think about whether or not you want it, owning homes is probably not going to be, unless you're using them to make money with, is not going to be something that's going to be on the highest priorities. What's going to be on the highest priorities is that flow of money and the location that you happen to be at that time, and whether or not you're enjoying that location. Whether you own it or not is not a big deal, because you can have anything you want anyway. What did Matthew say there? Tate owns casinos in Romania. Yeah, he does. He owns. God, I to be honest with you, I hadn't really followed much of Andrew Tate. I just didn't follow him much, right? But over the last, because I was kind of listening to these guys who, like, these big money guys, and just kind of getting their attitudes, thinking about their attitudes and what they have to say and stuff. And I was pretty impressed. Like, Andrew Tate's like kind of the dude, I mean, he's a loudmouth, but I like what he says. I mean, I really do. And at least his drive for business and making business happen, I mean, that's pretty cool. And to be like pretty much shut off the entire internet, like just like closed out of every social media and all that other stuff, to still continue to be pushing his name and his product out there. I mean, that's something to look at. I mean, that's like, that's hardcore. That's awesome, All right. Someone displaying their hurt butt. Oh. All right. Jake Paul versus Andrew Tate. Jake Paul. Yeah, I would love to see that one. I would go to that one. All right. Roger, 6 on the die. Did I miss some up there? Yeah, I agree. Rental real estate. Yeah. See, Matthew knows it. I mean, for somebody like, I've talked with Matthew quite a few times, and, he, like, I was just so, like, I ain't into it. But then Matthew changed my tune, right? I mean, he changed, like, my perspective on things. He gave me that encouragement to say, hey, man, it's not as bad as you might think. Don't knock it so heavy. Take a look at some of the opportunities that can come around, and look what I did. I mean, we were kind of like the same guys. We didn't do like really awesome. We're just kind of working dudes in our 20s or whatever, trying to figure things out. And he figured it out in the real estate game, and I have to give it to him, man, because I want to follow in that. I mean, at least in the success of something like that. That's the impressive part. All right. Let's see here. All-nighter. Own nothing but control everything. Yes, exactly right. And that's what J.P. Morgan, the man, told him. And it was just like, how do you achieve the level of wealth you have? And he was just like, the key to it all is to own nothing but be in charge of everything. And that's exactly right. To like, have the cash flow coming in, but there's nothing really that you're tied down to. Is the market overcorrecting to the newest CPI info? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, to be honest with you, that inflation, like, we were going 100 miles an hour and now we're only doing 80 miles an hour. Isn't that awesome? I mean, it's just like, no, I mean, we're still going way too fast, right? So the market loved the idea of it coming down, but, as far as good news, I don't see that. Like, it's not good news. It's what I find kind of funny is that, like, bad news ends up being good news for the markets, right? That's what I find kind of interesting, is that even though, like, the news is bad, like, we still have this high inflation, but they're like, oh, but it's not as bad. That's good, right? So not as bad is good, and if it's right, so that's why I know that things are. It's everybody's on hopium. That's really what it comes down to. The UN sucks. Let's see here. Own everything, giving nothing. Anyone take a bath on crypto, or were you all smart enough to wait and see? Um, as far as cryptocurrencies go, I am on a one-way street. There is no, like, I don't sell. Like, I only buy cryptocurrencies. And I intend to only buy cryptocurrencies forever. Like, I have no intentions on ever selling cryptocurrency. Like that's not even part of the game that I have in my head. I'm buying cryptocurrencies because I wanted to be in the game, and I was tired of not being in the game every time it ran up. Now, I do plan on, say, giving that cryptocurrency away if it did shoot up to something ungodly high, like, Bitcoin goes to millions of dollars or something like that, then yeah, I might sell out of it or something like that. But that's not the game that I'm playing with it. I buy into crypto because I want to be part of this new digital change that is happening. Like, I'm not excited about like how awesome it is. Like, I don't think it's a good thing, right, that's taking place. But if you don't participate in it, then you're not going to know what it's about, and it's going to pass you up, and you're going to be left behind, right? So whether it's a good thing or bad thing, it doesn't is neither here nor there. It's happening, and that's the important part about it to understand, is that if you don't do something, like as far as participating with this, then you're going to miss out. And you're not going to, you're going to be looking back on, dang, I wish I had just bought $10 worth, so I would have been in the game and had a little bit better understanding of it. There's going to be a lot of people saying that. Hey, thank you very much, Kay's commentary, for the $3 super sticker. Very much thank you for the thumbs up. All right. Why do you always talk about investing in gold, silver, and Bitcoin? I almost never hear you talk about stocks, bonds. Do you advocate having diversification of both? That's not true. I talk about stocks. I mean, I just don't recommend stocks, right? And so if you're buying into the stock market, you're picking out your own stocks. I mean, I'm not going to say, hey, tech is the way you want to go or whatever. That's up to you. I am personally not getting anywhere near the stock market until I see the 30-year, 5-year spread on the treasury start to increase, right? When that spread starts to widen, then I have a feeling that's going to be the time to get into the game, because Alan Greenspan, right? When they asked him, when the 2-year when you have the 2-year, 10-year invert, that's an invert, or in a recession indicator, right? The inverted yield curve. And he said, although that is a very good indicator of a recession, what he likes to look at is the spread between the 30-year and the 5-year. And he says, when that spread widens, that's corporate management's willingness to invest. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean exactly. I mean, a few comments that I got every time I say that, there's a few people who suggest, they know what that means, something about corporate management's getting into, building up their companies or whatever. I mean, interpret it however you want. All I guess I'm saying is that when I see that that 5-year, 30-year spread start to widen, I'm moving in. I'm going to start moving into the stock market. And, whether I'm right or wrong on that, that's going to be the indicator. There's probably going to be a whole lot of other things that are happening at the time that are probably also going to suggest to get into the stock market. So I'm not suggesting getting into stocks, because I'm not getting into stocks, and I don't think the stock market is the place to be. I also don't think the bond market is anywhere near where anybody should be remotely touching. But that's me personally. Like, if you want to go and buy those inflation protected bonds or whatever is out there, go for it, right? But I was making this call a year ago, saying that there is going to be some major issues coming to the corporate and the sovereign debts, right? We are going to have a corporate and sovereign debt crisis. I'm sure of it, right? The sovereign debts from outside the nation, corporations definitely outside this nation, but there's also going to be corporations within this nation that are all going to start defaulting when the monetary policy reaches its most tightness. I don't know, when the Federal Reserve, just before they finally get to the point where they're going to stop the tightening of their balance sheet, that's when you're going to see the most defaults and everything else happening, because that's when the pool of liquidity is going to be the smallest. People are going to be scrambling for dollars to try and pay off their debts, and they won't be able to get them because there's just simply not going to be enough dollars out there after the Federal Reserve has unwind their balance sheet as much as they're planning on doing. Yeah. So yeah, I suggest gold, silver, cryptos, because those are things that are outside of the third party. You don't have to worry about an app or an account, a portfolio, a phone call, a business. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff, right? Because it's a physical item that's in your hand, or in the case of cryptocurrencies, it's a spot on the ledger. But regardless, it's outside of the third party, and that's the most important part when you're looking at an economic downturn that we're probably going to go into that is going to be as bad as this one. So that's me personally. I mean, stick around for a couple of years and we might be talking all about the stock market. All right. Oh man, so many comments. Gee whiz. Don't look at it like the stock market. Look at it as an opportunity to buy business. Yes, and that's a very good way to look about it. Look at it. Is you think this is a business that I want to I'm going to participate in, as far as like me personally, like the only stock that I really buy is Altria, right? People gave me a hard time about that, saying their debts are off the charts, they're not going to do very well. Whatever. I mean, that's the stock that I picked. It had a high dividend yield to it, and it's alcohol and cigarettes. I know a little bit about addiction, so that's the only reason why I picked Altria as one of the stocks that I go with. There is another electric vehicle company out there that had my eye on that I think is probably not going to succeed. But if they did, I mean, the price of it is so low right now that it you know, might be like a gambling shot, but hell, why not, right? So there's an electric vehicle company that I was kind of eyeballing there for a little bit. But I don't want to make those suggestions. I mean, that's just like, I'm not any kind of investor. What do I know about buying into these things? All right. URSA 203. Thank you very much for the $5. Very nice of you. Let's see here. I like Rivian and Lucid. Let's see here. I think they will be ways around getting chipped. Yeah, I'm not getting chipped, guys. There is no way in the world that I will ever get an RFID chip anywhere implanted in me. I will not get tattooed with barcodes or anything like that. I'll get tattooed, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna get any kind of marks or anything like that. I carry my phone around. That is about as close to it as that will ever happen. I mean, and I'm going to be pretty adamant about that. I've already, I had committed myself to not carrying a cell phone around for years. I mean, for a long time. And, so I know I can do it. I mean, if I have to give up YouTube and whatever, so be it. But I'm not going to get an RFID chip implant. It's not going to happen. Yep, phone or no, thank you. Yeah. Bitcoin is the future of money. Thumbs up for that, man. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Bitcoin is necessarily going to be the future of money, but I have a feeling that cryptocurrencies are definitely going to be there, whether it's a central bank digital currency or some other kind of form of cryptocurrency that's a Bitcoin-like thing. I don't think Bitcoin will go anywhere. I think it'll still be valuable in the future, but I think it's going to be a it's going to be so big as far as like the transactions that would have to take place, that it's going to be like transactions between nations, or maybe like, major corporation buying a house or something like that, something big. But as far as like the daily transactions or something like that, I don't think Bitcoin's going to be the way to go. Maybe a secondary layer system incorporated with Bitcoin. But I honestly think that the cryptocurrency, like the digital transactions that are going to be happening in the future, are probably going to be happening with a dollar equivalent, something like a stable coin, whether it's a central bank digital currency like a Fed Now, like the Fed coin or something like that, or a stable coin that is backed by the dollar, because there is so much talk coming from the Federal Reserve, especially if you read some of their speeches when they talk about the stable coins, in that they could transfer monetary policy straight through the stable coins. And so anything that is attached, like pegged to the dollar. If you have a nation's, like a foreign nation, when they peg their currency to the dollar, so it trades 1-to-1 with the dollar, whatever monetary policies that are occurring in the United States transfers through into that other nation. And so the argument that the Federal Reserve is using now is that they don't really have to change anything. All the technology and all the innovations are happening right now with stable coins. Basically, the people are doing the work, and all they have to do is basically peg, not the Federal Reserve, just the stable coins, peg it $1 to one stable coin, and whatever the Federal Reserve does for monetary policies will transfer through those stable coins. And what's interesting about that is that the stable coins are already in play. Right? Like they don't have to introduce anything. They're already here and being used. Right? They're going to say one day, it's just like, you're going to use crypto. You're already using it. It's already happened, and people didn't even realize it. Yeah. All right, just like Pink Floyd says, use and thems, yeah. Did you see the news on FTX? That unraveled quick. Thoughts? I didn't. I heard that they went out of business, or like the exchange went down. I do not trust crypto exchanges, like none of them. Pretty much, I got burned on Cryptsy years ago, and I learned my lesson about keeping your money at a crypto exchange. I mean, Mt. Gox was the first one I saw that happen, and then I got hammered on Cryptsy. I didn't get hammered. I lost like $100 or something like that. I don't even remember. It wasn't that much, $50 or something. But the fact is that it happened. I learned my lesson. I'm like, well, don't keep your cryptos at exchanges, right? Because these exchanges may not be, all what they like I don't know how to say it, the legitimate service company. Like, I don't even think cryptos are quite legitimate, so I'm not even sure if like an exchange would be legitimate either. All right. Yen is making nice moves, yeah? All right. When chipped hell becomes your final destination, so don't allow cryptocurrencies to lure you in. No, you're wrong about that, man. Like, it's better to understand the enemy, right? Like, cryptocurrencies are happening regardless, right? They are going to happen. It's better to figure it out and learn how to manipulate within that, to operate within that system, to be able to manipulate the system itself, to say, I can operate and I don't have to play by your rules, right? And the only way to do that is to understand the game by being in it. Like, you have to be part of it in order to understand it to the level to avoid it, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of hard to think about, but avoiding it altogether will probably, it'll either hurt you in the end, or it'll force you to suffer the consequences from not being in it. That's like probably what the major is. If you can slide into it, understand what's happening there, and then be able to basically protect yourself from it. But you have to be understanding of what it is in order to protect yourself from it. Thank you very much, Tom Annan Bear, for the $10. Very nice of you. Was FTX an example of a zombie corporation? Check out the new blue check parody accounts like Lockheed Martin. Tweets from these accounts are blamed for their recent stock collapse. Credit Owen Benjamin. Haha, right on. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Owen Benjamin actually sent me an email the other day saying, hey, man, the fans are talking. We need to talk. And I was just like, you're absolutely right, brother. So I haven't gotten into any kind of deep email communication with them, but we have talked a little bit. So we will get together at some point and have that conversation that I know you guys are all looking forward to. I thought crypto was the hidden key to riches. I don't think so. I think it's the hidden key to causing negative interest rates. That's what I think it's all about. I mean, that's what I think the central bank digital currency is all about, is about taking interest rates negative. I mean, they'll give you all kinds of other reasons and excuses and stuff for why it's going to benefit. It's going to be efficiency and being able to bank the unbanked. And I don't know, they're going to come up with all kinds of like wonderful, awesome reasons why everybody should be participating in this cryptocurrency, this central bank digital currency. But really, ultimately, it's all about taking interest rates negative. They need to get cash out of the system so that you wouldn't pull the cash out and put it in the mattress. Once they get cash out of the system, you are locked in. And if you're locked into the system, they can take it negative. That's really what cryptocurrencies or central bank digital currencies are all about. Let's see here. It was a joke. He. Sorry, UE. Oh, okay. Haha. I don't know. I missed it. I'm sorry. All right. You don't have to pick a rattlesnake up and manipulate it in order to recognize the dangers. No, you're right. You don't. But can you look at the rattlesnake and say that's a rattlesnake? Right? I mean, how do you know? Is it somebody else telling you it's a rattlesnake? Or do you know it's a rattlesnake? And what told you it was a rattlesnake? Did you do enough research to understand that you recognize what a rattlesnake is? I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, if you recognize it to that point, that's enough, right? I guess. But to me, like I would want to do a little bit more research into it. I don't necessarily need to pick up that rattlesnake because I don't want a snake. But if I did go to pick up the rattlesnake, I would like to know definitely that it is a rattlesnake, right? And then if I isn't going to pick it up, what am I going to do with it? Like, what am I going to, why do I have this rattlesnake? Do I plan on keeping it? I mean, is it so I can show my friends, or is it so that I can understand what a rattlesnake is going to be like going into the future, right? I mean, I could pick up the rattlesnake, put it in an aquarium, and then study its habits, and what it does, I mean, that's like one way of going about it, but that's really the rattlesnake analogy doesn't quite work, right? Because we already know what a rattlesnake is. And we got a lot of information. And if you wanted to know more about a rattlesnake, you could go research that. And if you wanted to know ultimately what a rattlesnake is, well, you can get one and then you can have it, right? I mean, this is where I'm kind of coming from on it. It's like the rattlesnake analogy is great. You don't have to go pick it up. But then again, you already know what the dangers are from the rattlesnake. Do we really know what the dangers are from a cryptocurrency? Do we really understand that a cryptocurrency can be related to a rattlesnake? Is it as bad as a rattlesnake? I mean, who knows? Nobody knows these things, right? There's other people's opinions on it. But when it comes to an actual rattlesnake, there's a lot of information that you can find about rattlesnakes. There's not a lot of information that's going to tell you the dangers of cryptocurrency, except for somebody's opinion on it, because we don't have cryptocurrencies to have an example of from the past, right? So I don't know. I mean, that's my opinion on it. I don't really necessarily look at cryptocurrencies as a danger to own, right? I mean, if you lost all your money from it, then maybe that's a danger. But if you put that much money into it that it is a danger, then you probably weren't playing the right game anyway. So again, like having a little bit of cryptocurrency so that you understand the game, I think is a very smart way to go about it. Stepped up to you. All right. Chase, tell the zoo that. Okay. The one issue I see with crypto is that the majority of people don't even know what crypto even is or even like to transact with it to buy good. Yeah, you're right. Most people don't understand what cryptocurrency is. And and it isn't going to be something that they have to understand to transact with. They're going to have a debit card and they're going to transact, and people are going to be like, you just use cryptocurrency, and they're going to be like, whatever. Like they didn't even know it happened. Like you don't have to like in the early days when we were first playing around with Bitcoin, you had to find somebody with a wallet, and then you had to do all that other stuff. Nowadays, like you could easily put cryptocurrencies on a debit card and nobody would even know any difference about it. They'd be using the debit card just like anything else. So it's not like a learning thing that you would have to go through as far as introducing cryptocurrencies into society or the system or anything. It could just be something as simple as a debit card. Just remember, my friend, no step on snakes. No, you're right. I mean, so you don't want to jump into a pit of snakes, right? That's what I'm kind of getting at. I mean, you don't want to go that far, but you do want. I mean, in my opinion, you want to understand it, and the best way to understand it is to have it, right? And that's really, if you have skin in the game, then you're gonna pay better attention to it. All right. Do you think EBT food stamps is almost the same idea as central bank digital currency, where they can control how you spend that money? Well, I mean, I guess in like the controlling aspect of things, but as far as like a central bank digital currency, that's like No, I mean the central bank digital currency is a different type of money altogether. It's not like an EBT kind of thing. EBT is a social safety net. Central bank digital currency is an actual money, so no. Could they use it? Yeah. I mean, they can use central bank digital currency to do some pretty scary damn stuff. I mean, there's a lot of scary things that can come from your imagination when you think about the controlling aspects of the central bank digital currency. But I'm not scared of it. Like I'm not scared of any of that stuff. Living in fear is not something that I ever do. I just don't do it. So I don't know. Like I don't know, where did the question go with that? I forget. I think I kind of answered it anyway. Oh, as far as controlling spending, yeah. I mean, at first, like, in my opinion, when they introduce the central bank digital currencies, like, there's going to be no control. Like, they're going to, like, you can use this for whatever you want. Like, you want to buy guns or alcohol or tobacco or drugs or black market deals or whatever you want. Criminal behaviors, whatever. Just go and use it, right? And I know a lot of people might be rolling their eyes at that, but that's the only way that they'll get the people to be that confident in it, is that they can use it and not get in trouble. And if you do that for a generation or two, after that, that next generation will be so locked in that they won't be able to get out. And then at that point, you can start twisting the screws to it. You can start putting putting the limitations on it and stuff like that. But in order to introduce it to the people and get them to accept it, they can't put any kind of controls or limitations on it, or else the people would refuse it. They would be like, hell no, I ain't touching that. But if they can work just like any other currency does, then they'll accept it, especially if they can do illegal stuff with it. Thank you very much, Roger Taylor, for the $1.99. Dixie Index Thoughts 106 today. Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit about that earlier today. I mean, it's temporary. You're going to see the dollar strengthen again. As long as the Federal Reserve continues into their quantitative tightening, pulling that Federal Reserve notes back out of the economy, making it tougher for everybody to pay their debts off, the dollar is going to strengthen again. What we are experiencing right now is just a short-term temporary relief, pressure relief from what is going to be some major pain as the dollar continues to rise. We have not seen pain yet. The Fed promised us pain, right? So we got a long ways to go. I mean, 106, I couldn't give you a number, but it's gonna be much higher than 106, right? It's gonna go up above the 110. It's gonna go much higher than that. Now, how long it goes, how much, I couldn't tell you, but as long as the quantitative tightening is continuing and the Fed is promising to bring us some pain, delivering pain we ain't seen yet, we still got a long ways to go. Until we see the pain, right? We got to feel some pain, and then we can see the Federal Reserve reverse course. All right, you're living in action, and that's worse. The slavery, money is power over man. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, I could see saving money and not moving on it. Like, that's a waste of time, right? Because every day that the dollar is not working for you, that's another day that you've lost revenue or investment that you could have. Timing's also another big issue, right? So there's a lot of people out there who know exactly where to put the money. They know exactly when to borrow and where to place that money, and they can make bunches of money. Like, we joked around, like, how long do you think it would take Donald Trump to acquire $1 million? Like, a few hours, couple of days, what, couple weeks maybe, if he was like had no contacts to start with. Definitely by the end of the month, right? I mean, Donald Trump would have $1 million like that. Like, he knows exactly how to do it. And there's a lot of people out there who know exactly how to do it. And they laugh at people like us who don't know how to do it, right? So that's something interesting to think about. Donald just has to ask his dad for it, small loans and all that. Yeah, but the thing is that he also understands the system so well that even if he didn't have those contacts, just the understanding of the system is enough for him, that I'm sure that he can knock it out in a matter of days. If it would even take that long. All right. What is the alternative to currency? Slavery, bruh. Prostitution. What is the alternative to currency? I don't know. Like, you know, I don't know what the question is supposed to be like. Like, we've had lots of currencies throughout histories and stuff like that. I mean, if you're looking at like what is it that people are going to do if they don't have money, like to do transactions with? Well, yeah, prostitution is the oldest form of employment in the history of the world, right? So I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say about something like that. We are going to have transactions in the future, and whether they're done with, you know, a fiat currency in paper form or they're done with a digital transaction and cryptocurrencies, who knows what that's going to be like. I doubt we're not going to have anything, right? I mean, there will be something to use, and I'm sure it'll be under the control of the government. All right. Hi, uneducated economist. Well, hello, Joe. FTX bankruptcy. Crypto done. No, no, it's not. Crypto's exchange. An exchange is not the same as the blockchain, right? I mean, the exchange is isn't very little more than just a room that people exchange cryptocurrencies and cash, right? It's not the blockchain technology. That doesn't have anything to do with it. It doesn't crash the cryptocurrencies, right? It's just one business that's screwed up bad. Now, you know, I mean, the exchanges can limit the cryptocurrency in the sense that you wouldn't be able to cash in and out of it as easily, right? So if you're looking to cash your cryptocurrencies out, then having the exchanges would be useful. It would be important. But as far as the actual functioning of the blockchain technologies, they don't need exchanges. They don't need any of that. All right, the alternative to currency is barter. It was very unsuccessful in the Soviet Union days. Yeah, and that's the thing about barter is it's like you really have to understand your network and have a big network. We did a lot of bartering when we had the hobby farm. You know, we raised chickens and had, you know, a decent garden. The neighbor, he had pigs, and so between us all, like we could go on Facebook on the some of the like the sell sites and stuff like that and trade and do a lot of trading. So like technology has really advanced the ability to do barter because you could put out there, hey, I got chickens looking for this or this or this, and then somebody will be popping up saying, hey, I'll trade your chickens for, you know, whatever, you know, raspberry plants or whatever I got going on. That like once you get into that habit of doing that or get into those networks, it's actually a lot easier than you might think. You know, you just have to find the people who have it. Like if you are, for example, you know, you want goat milk or something like that, then you have to find somebody who has the goat milk, and then you trade with them. You find something that they don't have that you have a you know, a steady supply of, and you trade it to them. Or you find something that they want, and then you find somebody who has that, and then you trade that person, right? And so you figure out the circle in which to make it happen. But that's it's a lot easier than people think, you know. And again, like, you know, Facebook sell sites and stuff like that make it so much easier. There are apps for that. Yeah, and they make apps for them too. Yeah. Short-term treasuries are even more king. I don't trust the treasuries at all. Like, I mean, I'm just not into somebody else's promise to pay right now. I mean, if things were different, maybe like, you know, if the economy was doing a little bit better, but I just have a feeling that somebody's going to step up one day and say, I'm sorry, I can't pay you. And when it comes to the bonds, like, if you're holding on to it to maturity, like if you're buying a short-term bond and you're planning on holding it to maturity, that's cool. That's one thing. But if you're buying any of the longer-term bonds, I don't know because the potential to sell those into the future might not be as good as one might think. Um, I have a feeling that the interest rates are going to stay elevated for a significant amount of time. So again, if you're holding on to that bond till maturity, then yeah, that's cool, I guess. But other than that, I wouldn't be into it. Yeah. If nothing was illegal, Bitcoin would be below 9,000. If nothing was illegal, Bitcoin would be below 9,000. Why? Because illegal transactions are done with Bitcoin? Is that the idea? Because see, I don't know about that. Like all the transactions that are done like illegally with Bitcoin, I don't think they even come remotely close. Like not even a drop in the bucket. It would be like spitting into the sea compared to the US dollar and the illegal transactions that take place using the US dollar. Like, there is nothing that even remotely comes close to that. Bitcoin, I mean, yeah, it's like it gets a lot of attention, terrorism and drug deals and stuff like that. No, terrorism and drug deals, it's the US dollar by far. I mean, by far. Bitcoin doesn't even come close. Okay, Bitcoin tracks everything. Yeah, more states legalize cannabis, less need to use crypto to buy cannabis. Who the I'm in a state where weed was practically legal the entire time. Like, Oregon decriminalized weed back in like the 70s. Okay, if you had an ounce of weed and you got caught with an ounce of weed or less on your person, you pay. It was a misdemeanor. You paid a fine. You went on your way. Right? I mean, like literally, you got a ticket for it. There was nobody went to jail. Nobody lost their livelihoods. None of that shit happened. Right? But yet here I hear all this stuff about like how cryptocurrencies is making cannabis like more popular or making the transactions happen and stuff, and I'm like, what? That's not what's happening, the dispensaries down here, I went and talked to my buddy. He works at one of them, and I was just like, so why don't you guys take debit cards? What's the deal behind that? And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. We take debit cards. And I'm like, no, I mean, I heard about it. You guys are only cash. You can only accept cash, or you have to use the ATM. He goes, no, we'll take your debit card. And I'm like, what the hell is all this shit that I hear about how banks don't participate with it? It's just like, no, they will. There's some rules and books lookings and different things that you have to go through, but they'll accept it. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know, these laws and things that come up, I just don't get it. Like, it doesn't, I mean, I don't get it. Like, weed doesn't have any value. I just don't understand why it's just even so popular. Like, I just don't get it. It practically pours out on the ground around here. Everybody has it. Nobody cares. It's not worth anything. All right, Dumb Money Media, $5. Thank you so much. What up, man? Silverfest is tomorrow, so if you guys curious, you should definitely check it out. Also, I made a hype video if you're curious. If you were curious, Dumb Money Media. Thank you very much, man. Yeah, go check it out. Let's see what he has to say. The Federal Reserve, the Fed. All right. Why the Federal Reserve? Has the sky fallen yet? No, it's getting there though. Why? I'm not sure what the question is. Why the Fed? Like, why do we have a Federal Reserve? Like, what's the point of the Federal Reserve? Oregon is nice for the pro-cannabis consumer. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it really is. I mean, I don't understand, like, these other states that, have all these weird laws that, put people in jail for having a joint or something like that. Like, I don't get it. Like, to me, it's just like, why would you want to destroy lives in such fashions? I mean, from somebody who's done both, alcohol, like, is an amazing thing. Like, you can consume alcohol and get as obliterated as you want. Like, if you want to get higher tonight than you've ever been, you can do it off of alcohol, right? But with weed, you can only get so high. Like, I watched my buddy do 30 bong hits in a row, and he didn't change any different from like about the second or third hit to the last one he took. He was like, after about the third one, he didn't really, it was like the same. It was like he didn't act any different, And if you were to take 30 shots, you'd be toast, right? So, like, it's not the same. People who lack empathy love to enforce their virtue on others. The Fed is why Bitcoin was made. Interesting. Okay. If the CBDC starts restricting what can be bought, I foresee black markets to work around this restriction. Well, yeah, I mean, there will never be a way that will prevent, there's never going to be a way that you can totally control the people. Like, it just won't happen. And, even the moment, like the perfect society, whatever, the moment that you achieve it, it would fail, because after that, you would be in an attempt to try and maintain a perfect society, which meant that anything that was counterintuitive to a perfect society would then therefore be unperfect and have to be eliminated out of it, right? So there would never, it would always be an attempt to try and maintain a perfect society, which would mean that it's not perfect to begin with. So there's no way, right? There's no way of anything ever happening that is going to be like, you know, a way of controlling or being perfect or anything like that. So when the central bank digital currencies kick in and it starts restricting people, or they feel they're restricted by the central bank digital currencies, they'll move into something else. I mean, they will find some other way of doing transactions. And there's little doubt in my mind that that'll happen. I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of invention. It will take place. I mean, it'll happen. All right. Hey, right on, man. You guys are hitting me up with these super chats. I really appreciate it. Redison, thank you very much for the $4.99. In the infamous NYC, thank you very much for the $5. Doesn't the Constitution allow for slavery if you go to jail? Wait a minute, doesn't it? Say if you go to jail? So I could see how making laws to ensure people for free labor that big businesses use. I don't know if that necessarily. I mean, the Constitution has the, you know, what is it, the Eighth Amendment, right? Cruel and unusual punishment. So, I mean, I don't know if that's like left up to opinion. I mean, I guess back in the day, slavery wasn't that cruel or unusual. I mean, I'm not trying to say that. I guess that might be an opinion from back in the day or something like that. But there's no cruel and unusual punishment leading you towards slavery from the crimes that you commit today. Like, I don't see that happening at any time. So, I mean, the Constitution does protect you in that, like if you, from cruel and unusual, punishments. I don't know. Let's see. Black market will prevail. Black market always will. Like, there's no way that you would never not have a black market. It just always prevails. In fact, black market is the true free market. At no point in history have so many countries had so much debt. Time bomb. Yep. And that's why I keep saying it. It's going to be a corporate and debt crisis, a corporate debt and sovereign debt lending crisis. That's what's going to happen. I think he is referring to indentured slavery. Yeah. Like, you're in debt, so you have to pay off your debts. Yeah, they don't really have that, and you don't go to prison for that either. So, I mean, I guess if it's fraudulent and certain things, like, but, just for having credit card debt, you don't go to jail and you don't go into slavery. Bitcoin will not go down. There is too much of it that will be in the blockchain space just for the fact some folks have lost their keys. Right. Oh, that's true. I mean, yeah. But, well, the Bitcoin, like, once it was initiated, it has never not worked. Right? There's never been a time when it didn't function. I mean, there's been exchanges that have gone down. There's been issues with it. There's been frauds and all kinds of stuff. But the Bitcoin blockchain protocol, that has always functioned, and as far as I can tell, always will. All right. Even with cannabis legal, there are still private sellers. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why. Like, why would anybody go to a private? I mean, unless they had like really like outstanding good deals or something like that. But I mean, I don't like the prices aren't any better. Like I mean, as far as I can tell, it doesn't seem to be any price breaks. It's illegal going that direction. I don't know why. I mean, I can see why people would grow it and then take it out of state, like go to take it to states that aren't legal. But as far as like being a private grower seller, like doing black market trades here in weed in Oregon, I don't know. I mean, I don't see it. Maybe to teenagers who can't get into the dispensaries, All right. 16 tons by Tennessee Ernie Ford. I sold my soul to the company store. All right, before central bank digital currencies happen, if you have to move your assets to crypto or real estate or gold, which one would you choose? I would, like right at this moment, if you were asking me personally, I would be moving into gold and cryptos. But that's only if I would want to make the move right now, which I'm not really necessarily wanting to do. So like I'm getting into cash. I think cash is the best position to be in, simply because I think there's going to be some serious buying opportunities coming into the future. And although like I said in the video earlier, I'm not exactly like, have a lot of confidence in it, but and it does make me nervous, but I am positioning myself so that I can take advantage of real estate if the opportunity presents itself. Like I don't want to be missing out on that. So I'm moving towards the idea of getting into real estate myself. Like, I don't have any like actual plans or in the works, but like I want to, make sure that I have my ducks in a row to do something like that. But like I said, at this point, I'm not doing it. Hey, Wayne, I lost the feed, but I'm catching up at 2 times. All right. Accumulating lots of Cardano crypto for the next bull run. Altcoins will be cheap in the coming months. Yeah. Uh, AI does not compute with under the mattress wealth. Nope, it sure doesn't. All right. Okay, I wish they would legalize everything. All that would be legit. Human trafficking hits outright theft. Wow. Seems like so many are waiting for the real estate crash. Do you think if there's so many people looking to buy, it won't crash? I don't think there's going to be a real estate crash. No, I don't. Not at this time. I thought there was going to be one in 2019, and we were definitely headed towards one. It was going to happen. I had very little doubt in my mind that we would have had a severe downturn in the housing market, except pandemic saved the housing market. Yay. When the pandemic kicked in, everybody was told to stay home, and they kicked in all those moratoriums, don't have to pay rent, don't have to make your house payment, don't have to do any of that stuff. It completely covered up all the foreclosures that should have naturally been occurring during that time. So what happens if you don't have naturally occurring foreclosures? I mean, people are going to die, lose their jobs. Something's going to happen in which they can't make their payment on their house, and they're going to go into foreclosure. I mean, it's happened. It's not like there's a condition in the time where you say, oh man, all these poor people, they shouldn't go into foreclosure. Foreclosures are natural. They should happen. But during the pandemic, they didn't. They said, nope, nobody gets foreclosed on. Well, if you don't have foreclosures, then you're not going to have an inventory build from that, right? So like during the '08 financial crisis, there was a ton of people who were getting foreclosed on, and those foreclosed homes went into inventory. So by the time a couple of years go by, and all of a sudden there's all this inventory and all these house prices are just plummeting. Well, we don't have that same situation taking place yet, right? We don't have the foreclosures kicking in. So the other thing that was taking place during the '08 crisis was that we had a huge buildup, right? Home building was just screaming hot. There was a lot of construction taking place. And so there was a lot of inventory coming in from the new home builder construction market. A lot of inventory coming in from the foreclosures. These two created a lot of inventory, and when you have a lot of inventory, you have prices falling, right? Dramatically. Well, right now, we're starting off with incredibly low inventory. The home builders aren't into it, right? They're like, hey, we're not in the game. In fact, we're cutting way back on our new starts and everything we got going on. So the inventory buildup, it's not coming from the building supply side, right? It's not coming from the builders. So that means it's going to have to come from all the foreclosures that are going to take place. Well, where do foreclosures come from? It comes from unemployment. Well, unemployment is pretty low, right? And the jobs numbers aren't exactly like ugly. They're still pretty hot as far as the jobs market goes. So the idea that there's going to be a massive unemployment and then followed by a bunch of foreclosures that are then going to increase the inventory so that the prices could come down, that's a long ways to go. I mean, we got a long ways to get there because it's not the inventory buildup isn't going to come from the home builders. We already know this part. So that's where it's going to come from. It's going to come from foreclosures after the unemployment rises. But it ain't happening yet. So how long do you want to wait? How long are you going to wait for that? And then what happens when the prices do come down a little bit? people are jumping into the game. As soon as the prices come down just a little bit, they're like, man, that's it, man. I've been waiting. Like, I'm waiting too long. Even myself, when I went to go buy the house, I didn't want to buy the house, but I really want my kids to grow up in a house, right, with a yard. They catch the bus, they go to school, like the normal, like American life. That's what I really wanted for the boys. But I didn't want to jump into this damn house as expensive as it was at the time. At the time, right? I mean, even though the house price went up dramatically since I bought it, but at the time it was a scary number, and I thought for sure that we were going to have issues once the interest rates began to rise. So I was like not feeling it when I went into that place. The only thing that I really enjoyed about it is that I don't have to let my kids wait anymore. The family gets to live in the house now, not in a couple of years, not, someday, today, right? And that makes all the difference in the world to me, right? So how long are you going to wait? Like, are you going to wait 10 years to buy into a house, or are you going to start enjoying a house today, right? And so that's really what it came down for me, is just like, now I really enjoy this house because I really enjoy watching the family enjoy being in the house. Like, we don't have to worry about like, making rent, or not necessarily making rent, but having a rental property that you're living at and someday have to move because, it's not your permanent place. There's no concern over that now. We know that we're going to be here. All right, thank you very much. Let's see, that's the infamous, what we got here? Infamous NYC says, look up U.S. prison workers produce 11 billion worth of goods and services a year for pittance. Yeah, 800,000 incarcerated working for low to no pay per ACLU. Yeah, actually, I used to have a jacket made from Prison Blues. Remember Prison Blues? They would make that clothing line. I used to have a Prison Blues jacket. Let's see here. Then Hearts Collide. All right, $1.99. Thank you very much. Want to see Yuri in 5 years? Look up the Mark Wise. Huh. All right. An orange is better than a house? Huh. All right. UE. You really need some mods on these live shows or UT will bump you. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make All Nighter a mod. Come on, All Nighter, light up here. I can't get his... Give me a second, guys. I'm trying to make All Nighter a mod. I can't get his name to come up. Come on. How come other people come? Let me try that again. Ah, there we go. Okay. How do I make him a moderator? Report, go to channel, put user in timeout. No, I don't want to put him in timeout. Hide user on this channel. Ah, there we go. Add moderator. All right, All Nighter Hider is now a moderator of the channel. All right, All Nighter, you're on it, man. Get rid of those spammers and all those bad guys. And he's cool. All Nighter's not gonna just go and delete people's comments just because All Nighter's cool as shit. So, all right. What do you think about Terrebonne, Oregon? I'm not sure. I'd have to do some more research into that. I'm sorry. Do you think you have a couple of friends you can share rent with? That is what I did when I was young to save money and still have my own place. Yeah, when I was younger, I mean, my wife and I, we've been together since we were 18. So we had a few roommates at an apartment that we once lived at in downtown. And, it was good for making rent and stuff like that, but it was horrible on, like, just... It's much better to just be on your own, All right. Light them up, All Nighter, yeah. You don't like oranges? I love oranges. But I love apples more. Apples are by far my favorite fruit. I eat an apple every single day. Uh, right. I'm moving and choosing between Bend, Oregon, and Portland, Oregon. Do you have a preference? Ooh. I don't know. I guess Bend. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to check out the places for yourself and kind of figure it out. Um, Portland was getting pretty ugly there, but they're doing a lot now. I mean, the last few times I was up there, I didn't notice nearly as much garbage and shit like that laying all over the place. So there's some changes that are starting to happen there. I don't know if they're going to be quite significant yet. So I guess I'd probably go to Bend. All right. I lived in a boarding house. My own room and meals were $40 per week. That was a long time ago. Yeah. Wow. All right. Apples mess my stomach up. That's a bummer. Yeah, I love apples. I do. I eat one like I used to drink coffee in the afternoon, and now around 2 o'clock I eat an apple, and boom, man, it carries you like a cup of coffee would. In fact, it's even better. The sugars and the release from it, it's just like very energetic, and I love it. It's just like the perfect finish off for the rest of the day. I was earning about 180 per week at the time. Oh shit, and living in a $40 a week place. Portland was nice if you lived in the Southwest or Northwest, but it's money. Yeah, that's so true too. I mean, the nice places are very expensive. You're right. All right. Uh, yeah, I live in Portland. Things have been getting better, but maybe that was just because the election was coming up. We'll see if it continues. Yeah, that's a very good point. Because yeah, it certainly did seem to clean up right before the elections did. All right, how are building prices right now? Decent time to build with cash. Yeah. And that was something that I kind of thought about. Like you think about it, if the home builders are out of the game, that they're like, well, I'm gonna hold back. There's not a lot of new starts happening right now. If you could build a house now, you'd be one of the few people who would actually producing a house when nobody else is doing it, right? So, of course, like the idea is that the house is going to lose value by the time you actually get to selling it. But is it going to happen? I mean, that's like another question. I mean, we're all kind of waiting for this downturn in the housing market, this crashing housing market, but it's not happening yet. Could it happen? We don't know. The home builders aren't really into the game. The foreclosures aren't rising. You build a house right now, you could be one of the few people who has a house on the market, a spec home or something like that, when nobody else is really doing it. That could put you in a very good position, really, if you think about it. Now, is it going to happen like where the prices, stay steady or go up, or are they going to fall? Like the kind of like the idea is that they're going to be falling. So I don't know. Like you have to like I guess if it was a house that you plan on living in, I would go for it. But if it's a house you plan on selling, it's going to be very questionable. Like, you start the house now, you think it's going to be worth something, like a certain amount, but by the time you get it to completion, it's not, and then you lose all this money off of the deal. That sucks. All right. Will Twitter bankrupt? I doubt it. What's your favorite Apple brand? My favorite Apple, lately it's been the Honeycrisp. The Honeycrisp apple. That one's pretty good. I had a sugar bee earlier today. That was really decent. But I would say, yeah, I guess the Honeycrisp right now is my favorite. All right. What do you think of how the market reacted to the inflation numbers? Imagine a year ago someone said that the market shot to the moon after reporting inflation of 7.7%. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but yeah, that's ultimately what happened is that the markets were high on hopium. They saw that the inflation numbers came down a little bit, and it was just like, cool, instead of doing 100 miles an hour, now we're doing 80 miles an hour, and that's better. Right? So like, yay, markets, that's like, that's not good news. So yeah, it was just the market's jacked up on hopium, thinking that the Fed is going to be, reversing course now that the inflation numbers are coming down, but it's not. It's not going to happen. All right, dramatic headlines, but I agree. Yeah. All right, private home building with natural materials as an option. Yeah, I'm still trying to get it. James, get out of here, man. Um, I'm still trying to wrap my head around alternative building methods. Like when lumber prices shot up to as high as they are, everybody's like, "Well, why don't you just use concrete? I mean, concrete would be a better form." Well, yeah, I mean, that is, but you also have to be like prepared to build the house out of concrete, meaning that your plans were calling for concrete, your project was, budgeted for concrete, and you got a loan for building out of concrete. Like that's the problem with using concrete when the prices shot up as high as they did, is that you would have to switch everything over to this entirely different concept of building. It wasn't going to happen, right? Well, when the prices come back down, what's the most efficient, fastest way of building a house? Stick built, right? And I also got to thinking, like, if you're building out of concrete, well, then you have to have a concrete facility somewhere near where you're actually building. When you're stick building a home, you can carry a piece up there out of a pickup truck. You can carry the entire house up to wherever it needs to go, and not have to, like, stress about trying to get, like, concrete the distance to get there or something like that. I'm just saying, like, building out of wood is the most efficient, fastest, probably easiest way of distributing throughout the nation. Mr. Uneducated. Yeah, we've been there. All right. Alternate building methods. My son teaches cob. Yeah, and so, like, up here, like, it rains 9 months out of the year, right? So you also have to have a building method that's going to accept the terrible conditions in which that we have up here in the Pacific Northwest. You can frame a house in pretty much any weather, like, as far as stick built framing goes. If it gets like really bad weather, like a lot of snow or major winds or something like that. But if it's just raining, like a lot of rain, that ain't gonna stop the people up in the Northwest from building a home. They'll still build in the rain. We use concrete or natural stone here in Turkey. Yeah, and pretty much like everywhere else in the entire world, they use concrete and stone and metal and stuff. But here in the United States, we use wood. It's all made out of wood. All right. We use bricks in England. All that rain brings the mushrooms, Oregon, Washington rocks. Yeah, it does too. Like I really look forward to the season. It was kind of a bummer. This season was not nearly as good as the previous because the rains came a lot later than what they typically do. But there's still mushrooms out there, and I'm gonna go get me some tomorrow. So. Sup, Simon? The nighttime live stream, a new thing. No, I think probably is because daylight changes. Oregon doesn't get a whole lot of daylight during the winter. We gets dark here early, and so I do it after work. And during the summertime, it stays light till like 9 o'clock. So it's not really a new thing. It's just now that winter's here. All right. Let's see here. Elephant Man, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is one of my favorite movies. Yeah, I love that movie. Lumber in the U.S. is an economic advantage for all involved. Yeah. And I kind of agree with that. Like I was looking at like thinking about like how else can you distribute something as efficiently and consistently throughout the entire United States other than doing wood stick framing? Like that is by far the most efficient, fastest way of distributing the building material in order to build homes. And I think that was probably like the idea back in the day. Like when did they go on that huge like buildup of all those like ranch style, tract style homes? Was that like in the 70s? Like when they just went on like this huge building spree. And I mean, you think about it, like, something like a 1800 square foot ranch style single level starter home. I mean, those things there's not much to them, right? There really isn't. And you can knock these things out in a matter of like easily you could build these things in like 6 weeks. Like even just, you know, I mean, you don't have to break your neck doing it, but just going at a rate at a decent clip, you could easily build these things in 6 weeks, and you could build thousands of them in no time at all, hundreds of thousands of them. So really, like, what keeps the housing market from like being like building up an inventory level that would be enough to supply everybody with a house is really has more to do with like legalities, right? Permitting issues, labor issues, stuff like that. Those are the things that really, keep the housing market from having like plenty of homes built. Because you could build these 1,500 square foot, 1,800 square foot homes easy, 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 and everybody would have a house, no problem. But but the profit is not there, right? And so in order for a builder to be profitable, they pretty much in this day and age, because of all these input costs going into the house, they really have to build the most expensive house they can so that they can still get their profit margin off of it. Building 1,500 square foot homes are just not profitable. Um, so if they could create a time where the permitting and labor and the input costs and everything else was cheaper, then we would have plenty of homes for everybody. So whether it's done on purpose or not, that's just the condition we're in. Hey, thank you very much. Not your problem for the $10. I got laid off, but got a nice severance package, 6 months of salary plus 1 year health care. Wow. All the high performing got laid off for cheap labor. My learning is that I need to kiss butt. Trust universe. Um, yeah, that's what's kind of interesting about like I've worked for other companies that lay people off, right? I mean, I've worked for a lot of the lumber yards. What's pretty interesting is that the people like, and I've heard of, and I've seen this through other companies as well. They start trimming the fat, like the people who the company doesn't necessarily need, right? Whether they're like kind of an extra position or just weren't pulling their weight or whatever, they start trimming the fat and they kind of get rid of a bunch of positions or people that they don't feel the company needs anymore. And they lean it up, they make it much more lean. And and what ends up happening is that the people who are left behind, they kind of work a little bit harder because they think they're next, right? Here's the thing I found. If you are in a sales position, if you are the number one salesman, right, or number two, if you're at the top of it, you are not looked at. You are going to be the last person laid off. In fact, you're not looked at for anything, right? Like, if you are the number one salesman at a company, like you get away with murder, right? I mean, you get to do whatever you want. Like almost like show up whenever you want. You almost have like this arrogance to you, this arrogance or something that how do I describe it? It's like it's not necessarily arrogance or cocky. I don't know. It's just like there's something else there. Like if you're that good at doing sales and you perform that well, like consistently, you're left alone. Like they will not tell you anything. They will not. They just want you to just keep doing exactly what you are doing. So if you can stay at the top of your game, that's like the best place to be. And that's really what I love about like being in sales is that I'm good at it, right? And so being good at sales really has you the last looked at. Like, if you're good at sales, you're not going to get picked on to go do some other project or do something that nobody wants. They just want you to answer phones and keep selling stuff. And that's like the one thing like I can try and tell people, like when you're going, if you have a company that is potentially going to start laying people off and you are in sales, do your damnedest to work your way up to the number one sales position. If you can go there, then you will have the job. They will not mess with you. I'm the only one who does not pay attention to gas prices. I have to put gas in my car regardless of the price. Obviously, it has noticeably gotten higher, but it's a necessary regardless. The stream is awesome tonight. Hey, thank you very much, Elephant Man. Minimum wage is $45 per hour. What? Not true. It will be safer. People drive slower, safe on mushrooms. Oh, you guys are talking about getting high on mushrooms? Eh. Um, of course, I don't know anything about microdosing, so I shouldn't knock it. I've talked to plenty of people who have sang the praises of microdosing and talked about how it's helped them with their depression and stuff like that. I've done mushrooms a few times. I've gotten high on them, and I got way high on them. There was no micro anything happening there, and it was a quite intense trip. And to be honest with you, the next day I felt a little depressed over it. So um, that was my experience with it. So I'd never done micro anything on that kind of style. So I shouldn't talk bad about it. What did you hear? What did you hear? Miami Beach ordered sudden evacuation of condo building due to unsafe structure. Notice on Collins, October 28th, 164 units. Yeah, I heard about that thing too. I wish I knew a little bit more about it, but yeah. Actually, I heard about that when I was down in Miami in June. So, do you dare to resign? Well, I mean, are you talking about me personally from my sales position? I wouldn't resign. Like, I was thinking about it. I will give up my job at some point. Like, if YouTube continues to do what it's doing for me, and I continue on with like the speaking engagements and really build a career up after this, you know, being some sort of economist out there. It's still kind of weird to call myself that. I don't really see myself as an but I do like I could see like giving up like one day and just going YouTube full time and doing, just, speaking engagements and stuff like that. I think that would be an incredible life to have. To have that as my life. I mean, that would just, wow, what an amazing thing to think about. But I'm also a realist, so, I mean, I ground myself in reality a lot, so that's why I keep maintaining the job. It also gives me a really good perspective into the working class and the economy and things that I see from this sort of position. So I don't know, like having the working class job and using that for my livelihood and then using YouTube for everything else. Um, I don't know. It seems to be like it's working for me, so I don't know if I'll change that. The value of your house, like everyone else's, is coming down. So, because of the fact that you have a family, that you are actually preparing financially for that reality, because you seem to be in denial. In denial of what? The price of my house coming down? I mean, the Zillow estimate on it is $110,000 more than what I paid for it last year. Okay? Like, even if it was the same price as it was last year, I put $42,000 down on my house. All right? So, right now, the way it sits, I have like, I don't know, $170,000, $160,000 worth of equity in my house. Like, some stupid amount. Like, it's just like some ungodly amount. So yeah, let the prices fall. Like it can fall $100,000 and I still would not be underwater. It can fall $150,000 and I wouldn't be underwater right now. I'm not in denial. Like I was very concerned about buying a house at the time that I did. It's done nothing but go up in price. Right? My opportunity for buying a house has done nothing but the window of that has done nothing but close the entire time. Now, I could have been in a position right now to buy a house, even at today's prices, even at today's interest rates, right? But it would have taken everything out of me again, just like it did last year. So I wouldn't be any better position today or last year, right? Than I would have been last year, except that I would have been a year behind and I wouldn't have had my savings back, right? Been able to work on it. I'm not in denial. I'm a realist. I very much really understand what I'm in. All right. Lost feed. I'm back again. Right on. Yeah, I lost the feed there for a second too. It doesn't matter if you don't lean to set. Um, See you in Twitter. Is it you? Yeah, I do have a Twitter account, but unfortunately, I'm just not there very often. Um, I just don't have the time to participate on all these different social media platforms. I tried for a while, but it occupied so much time that I couldn't do it. Um, so I do have all the social media accounts, and I do post their stuff, my videos and things like that. But I don't really do a whole lot of engagement or stuff like that on those other medias. You missed my super chat, Simon. Where is it? I'm sorry, man. Let me go back up. Okay, there it is. I'm sorry, man. Jose, thank you very much for the $4.99. Simon, do you think government employee pension funds will need to be bailed out by the public if they don't meet certain returns? Yes, I do. Yes, I do think that is going to be a major issue coming in. I think that probably was from it was one of our other viewers here, one of my buddies, who had sent me a video saying, "Hey, man, do a review of this." And it was a gentleman who was talking about the daisy chain of financial engineering, I think is the way he described it. But he was basically talking about how these pension funds had pretty much compromised their position by the fact that we had these low interest rates. Now, let me see if I can explain this correctly. When the Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to the zero, right, to zero interest rates, what they ended up doing was driving the U.S. Treasuries down, the yields on the U.S. Treasuries. When the yields on the U.S. Treasuries come down, this is the safe and liquid asset, right? This is the one place that somebody can park their money knowing that they're guaranteed to get a return. Now, whether or not that return beats inflation, like your purchasing power, that's not really the issue. The issue is that you get a return on your money. So the U.S. Treasuries are like the safe haven, like the floor, right? Or I don't know, the base, I guess that's the way I should say it. Anything else after that is going to be risk, right? So you can either loan your money to the U.S. Treasury, which is a guaranteed return, or you can start taking on risk and getting a little bit higher yield from that. So these pensions, well, they're in pretty much in short, right? They don't have enough money, and they are not getting enough of a return to pay out the promises that they have done, right? So they need to get a much bigger return than what the U.S. Treasuries are going to provide. So they start reaching out on the risk, right? And they start moving in to corporate debt, right? Now, it's not exactly like pension funds can just buy corporate debt, because a lot of them have to achieve a certain investment grade in order for these pensions to be able to buy into this corporate debt. But it doesn't really matter. These corporations and these businesses that are not necessarily the most viable, they're risky, they're high risk. Some of them are so risky that they can't even sell junk bonds, right? So they have to take out loans from banks. Well, then these loans that these banks issue to these businesses, what they do is they bundle them up much like a mortgage-backed security. They call it a collateralized loan obligation, right? Well, these collateralized loan obligations, they are pretty much given the investment grade that the pensions would need in order to buy it. Even though the collateralized loan obligation itself doesn't have anything in it that would be investment grade, once you jumble all these businesses or all these loans into a single security, then you can chop that up, right, into different what they call tranches. And then when these loans are paid, the very highest tranche, right, gets paid first. And they give that in an investment grade that is capable for the pension funds to buy. So now we have to think about this for just a second. The pension funds are looking for a bigger return. They can't find it in the safe havens like the U.S. Treasury or even corporate debt that's just a little bit better in yield, because they still don't yield enough. So they have to reach out on ever higher risky places. But once they get into that risk, they can't buy it because it doesn't have the investment grade that they need. So they take those businesses, or some of them that are risky, and they put it into a package that can then be cut up and given that investment grade. Now the pension funds can buy into that. So when we have an economic downturn, the stuff that these pension funds have invested into is all garbage. right? And it's not like they have invested like all their money into these things. It's just that they have been exposed to this particular event. So, and they're not, and that's not the only, that's like a big case scenario, right? But if you think about it, like pensions all over the place have invested into very risky positions. And as the Federal Reserve lifts those interest rates out, all that risk starts to expose. So do I feel that the exposure to the from these pension funds have that at some point that's going to cause them to be in a place where they are not going to be able to pay out the pensions, then yes, the government will have to come in and say we are going to seize that and we are going to bail it out and probably bail it out with a bunch of U.S. Treasuries or something like that. Like I couldn't imagine what it is that they are going to do other than taxpayer dollars to fund this thing. But yeah, they are going to do it because people will flip out. They will, they won't know what to do because they didn't prepare for any other life than to get that pension. Like, they didn't make any other plans. That was it. So if it goes down, yeah, they're going to scream at the government to do something about it, and they will bail them out. I mean, that's my opinion on it. Right? Thank you very much, Elephant Man, for the $10. You guys are so awesome tonight. Very, very supportive of the channel. I can't believe you guys are so cool. Let's see here. Thank you for all your insight. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Elephant Man. I appreciate the $10. Like I said, you guys are very supportive, and I mean, I'd be out here doing this anyway, but when you guys, show your appreciation like that, man, I mean, it makes it so much better. It's just it really it really tells me that I'm doing something right here, and that I'm doing something good because there was a time in my life I didn't know what I was supposed to do, and now I feel like I got something. Now I feel like I got something I can do. All right, tell your kids Yuri from Harmon's Man crashed your chat. They will know who he is. Orange are his logo. Major influencer found you. Okay. Tell your kids Yuri from Harmon's. Okay. Huh. Wealthfront is paying 3.3 on cash. Thankfully, I haven't experienced any BS when pulling a few grand out of Navy Fed. Yeah, I haven't had. I've talked to somebody who said that they had an issue pulling $10,000, but I've never had any issue getting money out of the bank. But I've never really tried to pull that much either. Yeah. Unlimited printing system. Fake. Yep. Let's see here. All-nighter. That's good. I hear it's mostly large banks, not local credit unions. All right. One day, do you think you could do video of a breakdown on how the whole monetary system works? Bonds, treasuries, securities, interest rates, etc. Tutorial somewhat from your perspective. Yeah, I could probably do something like that. I feel like I kind of talk about those things in segments. So yeah, I guess doing it like a continuous video, like one shot would be, kind of a lot of fun to do. Maybe I'll think about that and do one tomorrow. Listening poolside in Thailand. Right on. Buy QYLD 12% return. Nobody wants to work forever. No, that's for sure, man. Thank you so much for the comment. Haven't seen mass shootings in a while. Didn't we just have one a couple weeks ago? Haven't seen. Let's see here. Business boomer, dude. Maybe there is a program that buys them. They took the IQ out of the dollar. Good old Alan Greenspan musical chairs, just like cryptocurrency musical chairs with a bench. All right. The biggest complaint I hear from people is not being able to find good contractors. Those businesses are disappearing. Actually, I hear that a lot. I just kind of thought it was from my area, but no, apparently that's like kind of the case across the country right now. Is that finding good quality contractors, people who know what they are doing and experienced and, can actually give you a good deal, is very hard to come by. I heard of a lady like, so I live on Oregon, but I live right on the river. So right on the other side of the river is Washington. And I heard of a lady who was upriver just a little ways. It's a little bit more remote up there, and I mean not like isolated by any means. It's just a little bit more remote. And she bought a house up there. She moved from like Portland or something like that. And she bought this little cute country home. And it had a broken window, and she could not find anybody to come out there and deal with this broken window. She eventually hired a guy from Portland and put him up in a hotel room so that he could repair the window. And I thought to myself, dang, there's a lot of work around here that people could be doing. I mean, she was willing to pay a lot of money to have this damn window fixed, and she did too. If one works, then how will we have an economy? If no one works, then how we won't. You simply will not have an economy if no one works. Um, I mean, you can have a time that there would be AI or something like that would do all the work for us. But the fact that people, like, if men don't work, they're not going to want to have a family. Like, I don't want to get into this too much because, I mean, it's like I don't really have any way to, all right. If men don't work, then they're not going to want to form a family. And if they don't form a family, then the kids that are raised or born aren't going to really have like, I mean, I don't know how to quite say this, but like family formation is not taking place in this country, and AI would cause that to get worse. Okay, and so although babies will be born, like the family formation, the having like many kids to replace the parents, right? So if you got two parents, if you have two kids, it just replaces them. It doesn't really cause any kind of expansion or growth to it. And so AI, in my opinion, would take away the work that men would typically do. And if men are doing work, then they would probably want to have a family. Like that's just the natural progression of things typically. Like I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that's kind of what would traditionally happen. So I have a feeling that AI is going to really disrupt this the way society is conducting itself because it's already going that way, right? I mean, we already have the lack of family formations. Hardly anybody stays married their entire life. There's like very little idea that this should be like a concept that is taught to people again. Like that is almost looked at as like a negative or incorrect way of going. So as far as I can tell, like I don't really see how this country is going to survive generations into the future without a major shift in the way that the people are conducting themselves as far as like creating families and having that family values and traditional roles and stuff like that. Without it, like we're doomed. But we're doomed anyway, so I don't know what difference it would make. All right. Jose, thank you again for the $1.99, man. That's awesome. I'll be in Oregon next week. Would you like to, I can't tell but the symbols. Would love to, I don't know, meet up, have coffee? Let's meet up, Jose. That sounds good. All right. Robert, yeah, send me an email on that. Robert Shields Jr., $1.99. Thank you very much. What will top 1% stop buying? 10 to $20 million homes? What will the top 1% stop buying? They won't. I don't think the top 1% ever stops buying. Like I think that's the only thing they do is buy. Like that is their whole everything is to buy a little bit during the booms, but then buy a lot during the bust. Like that's what I think the 1% does. What is the correlation between select banks allowing crypto and gambling sites accessibility? My bank doesn't allow it. I don't know. I mean, I hear a lot more banks are getting into the whole crypto, allowing crypto, IRAs, getting into cryptos. Like everybody is like exposing themselves to this crypto market. I mean, even like, a lot of people may not take it as any kind of like, take it into consideration, but when you got like PayPal and Venmo, these guys, they're getting into the crypto space as well. And so that that's like the preliminary. That's like them testing the waters to see what things are like. It won't be too much more into the future, and you're gonna find it everywhere. Like already I see it everywhere. I'm looking at the Coinstar machine over at Safeway, and it flashes up buy Bitcoin here. I go into the little tiny, like I live out in the country, there's a little store out there called Country Market, and it's your typical little tiny country store, there's not much in there. It's like, I mean, it's a grocery store, but it's like, it's small. And they got a Bitcoin ATM machine in there. Right? I mean, it's just like, it blows me away. Everywhere I go, I see cryptocurrencies. And a lot of people don't notice it because they don't know to look for it. But yeah, when you know it and you see it everywhere. It's amazing on how popular it's really becoming. All right. Everything will be tokenized. I totally agree with that. I think everything from commodities to services to our wages, everything will be tokenized. What time is it, guys? I'm getting kind of late here, isn't it? 7:15. All right. Well, how about we give it another 15 minutes? We'll make this a 2.5 hour one, and we can all head off to bed here soon. All right. Fees are so high on Bitcoin ATMs. Yeah, it was. I went over to the machine. I was just going to use it just for fun. I was like, God, no way. I'm not going to pay that. But then I asked him, I was like, have you ever seen anybody use this machine? And she goes, yeah, people will come in and every once in a while and use it. So it's not like the most popular thing in the world, but she says people do use the machine. You mean everything will be tokenized? We will live like hobbits? No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't. I think the advancements of like, I don't fear the future. Like everybody says, man, we're gonna live in Mad Max, and you're not gonna own anything, and you're gonna be like, eating bugs and shit. Like I don't know. Okay, maybe maybe somebody else will. I'm not gonna do that. That's not my future, and that's not the way I see it, and that's not what it's gonna be like. So like cryptocurrencies, I think are gonna really enhance the quality of life that everybody has. It won't enhance our freedoms, right? That's not what it's going to do, but it will enhance a lot of the conveniences that we have. I mean, you think about it. Cantillon talked about wealth, right? He described wealth, and he described wealth as three things: food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. That's it. Food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. That's wealth. Everything else is not wealth, right? So if you think about it, like we have the biggest producing food nation in the world, right? I mean, there's other nations that produce more food in weight, but we export more food. Like we produce an abundance of food beyond what we consume, right? Or at least in exporting qualities of it. We don't produce all the food we eat because we want stuff from other countries, but the amount that we export compared to other nations, we do far more of it than others. So we have the food, right? Conveniences. That is all this AI shit that we have going on, right? All the conveniences that are making our lives so much easier, phones and all the stuff, right? I mean, all the stuff. And then pleasures of life. Well, that's just your own opinion, right? I mean, pleasures of life is just like whatever it is. The Camaro that I get to drive for 10 minutes if I ever have one, right? That's a pleasure of life. Do you really need one? Does it make you does it give you pleasure? I mean, that's just your own opinion. So it's food and conveniences is really what wealth is all about. Pleasures is your enjoyment of those things. And so if we have plenty of food and we have the conveniences, then we will be wealthy, right? That is wealth. After that, what is it, right? So I have to think, like, if you have cryptocurrencies coming into the system and it provides like all this abundance for everybody, and they get to live whatever life they want, and they don't have to work, and they can just stand there and stare at the sky and no problems for doing that. That's pretty convenient, right? So all this is going to add a lot of wealth. Whether or not you have freedom with it, that's going to be another question. I have Ledger. I wash mine with Tide. Okay. Hey, UE, what is your favorite 1 ounce silver to buy? American Silver Eagles, Buffaloes, Maples? I personally like the Silver Eagles, the American Silver Eagles, and it's not because I'm a fan of like American government issued silver or something like that. The only reason why I really like the American Silver Eagles is because they are incredibly recognizable, right? And there's not a lot of question coming from, like, say, a coin dealer or a pawn shop or anything else like that. If you drop an American Silver Eagle on the table, they know exactly. They don't question it. Like, yep, bang, okay, I know exactly what that is. And for the most part, they carry a little bit higher premium to them too. Not only when you purchase it, but then when you go to sell it too. Depending on who you're dealing with, dealers will give you spot price for an American Silver Eagle, or slightly under spot price. A lot of times, if you go in with like just some generic silver bullion or something like that, they may want to give you a fairly decent um, fairly decent amount under the spot price, right? Because they're trying to make their money off the premium. So just for an example, like, it's not exactly right because premiums are all over the place everywhere you go. But just for an example, say you're going for a 20-ounce Silver Eagle. If you sell it to the dealer, he might sell it back to you for 25, right? So you sell it to him for 20, he sells it back to you for 25. You go in with a generic silver bullion, you might, like, spot price might be $20, you might get 17.50, and then he turns around and sells it for 22.50, something like that. That's pretty common with generic bullions. And in case, again, those numbers are just like, I just made those up off of my head. But that's what you generally find. So the American Silver Eagle, in my opinion, is the most recognizable piece of silver. So if you're going for something like that, then that's the way I would go. Other than that, I like Sunshine Mint if you're going to go for generic stuff. They actually make the planchets for the American Silver Eagles, so that's pretty cool. Um, so like the Sunshine Mint, and then, like, some of the popular places, Atmex is a really popular one for generic bullion. I like using Monarch Precious Metals. They have some really unique stuff, some hand pours and these sugar skulls, these Day of the Dead skulls that are pretty cool that I like giving away for gifts. So I'll buy from them every once in a while too. But yeah, that's me. American Silver Eagles. All right. I want the U.S. to print gold backs like Utah. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know if you've all seen those. Those are really neat. There is a company. They have these. They look like dollar bills, kinda. They're called gold backs. They almost look like a piece of foil, really. And they have, like, they like kind of look like a dollar bill or something like that. They have like images and stuff on it. But the bill itself is made of gold. Like, it actually has a weight of gold right in it. So, it could be like a 1,000th or 1/10 of an ounce or something like that. And so you can actually use these for payment. Like, it's an actual piece of gold that you can trade over, but then it has like a denomination written right on it. So it's a set amount. And I thought that was brilliant. I have a few of those that were sent to me by the viewers, for souvenir, for gifts, But I think those are pretty cool ideas. I like that one. But you also have to think, like, a lot of people say, like, the government should go back to a gold standard. You do realize that if they went back to a gold standard, they might confiscate your gold again. All right? Be careful what you wish for. Because if they went back to a gold standard, they would need all the gold. Now, you think about it, like, we had a gold standard, and that's what they did. Like, in the 30s, they had printed up way too much money, and they knew it. And if everybody started cashing in their dollars for the gold, there wasn't going to be enough of it out there. So they told everybody to bring in their gold and never get it back again, right? So that's what ended up happening. Back in the 30s, they confiscated all the gold, and then they held on to it until the 70s, until they ended the gold standard. And then they told everybody, okay, well, now you can own gold again. So if the United States goes back to a gold standard, you might want to reconsider it, because they might end up going into a gold confiscation at that time, saying, hey, you can't own gold anymore because we're using it to back the money again. And that wouldn't go over very well. So I don't think that's going to happen. Um, hey, I just had a conversation and said the same thing. I have no plans to move country to country. Yeah. Jim Cramer is everyone's daddy. Jim Cramer, whatever. All right. I don't think there would be a door to door confiscation. We that are smart, oh yeah, enough that we will retain our wealth. Yeah, I don't see that happening either. I don't think there would ever be a door to door confiscation kind of thing. Besides, Americans don't deal well with that. They would be like, they would hide it on purpose. They would throw it into the river just to keep the government from having it. Hey, I mean, that's the way they would be about it. Like, nope, yeah, if I ain't getting it, nobody gets it, you know? And that's the way they would go about it. Really, like, a return to the gold standard would probably end up happening somewhere in the treasury market. Like, I would imagine the treasury issuing out a bond that would be due in a set amount of gold or dollars. Like, it would be, you could buy this bond, like this treasury bond, and in 10 years, it would be an ounce of gold, right? Whatever an ounce of gold is selling for, that's what this bond would pay. Or I guess an ounce of gold, right? I mean, I don't know if they would actually physically like pay out in gold, but I would imagine that they would pay it out in like spot price of gold. Like if we went to something like that, then you could actually incorporate into the system a gold standard and then eventually like kind of build that up. I don't know though. That seems kind of a far-fetched way of going about it, but it's possible, Yeah, he got shouted out, all right. All right. Question: why banks and countries are buying gold? It's because gold is money and everything else is debt. That's why. There's nothing else out there other than possibly on a much distant scale like cryptocurrencies, but there's really nothing else out there that compares to gold. Period. And so if you have a situation in which that there's going to be a debt crisis happening, there's no other form of money. It's just gold. So it's no wonder why these central banks are protecting themselves. We are going to run into a global corporate debt crisis, like a sovereign and corporate debt crisis. So if these banks are going to do anything to protect themselves, they cannot have a third party claim. They have to have that insurance policy, just like I've been suggesting to everybody else. That's why they buy gold. It's because it's outside of that, you know, third party promise to pay. It's money and nothing else. All right. Gold is fake. Is it now? Do you think the petrodollar will die? Yeah. I mean, eventually it will. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But eventually, yes, the dollar will eventually lose its standing as the world reserve currency. I mean, all fiat currencies fail at some point. The fact that other nations around the world are in demand for the dollar is going to keep the dollar in play. It's going to keep it significant. It's going to keep it, strong. There will come a time when nations finally do abandon the dollar. They are going to say, I'm not going to do the deals in it. I'm not going to sell my oil. I don't want to be paid in dollars. Like that whole thing will eventually find its way into the world, global economy. But that's not happening today, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. And in fact, the road to get there, to that dollar demise, where everybody is finally jeez, I cannot say that word. When finally give up on the dollar and they're not going to use it anymore, the road to get there is going to cause the dollar to absolutely skyrocket. In fact, it would skyrocket even more than what I think is going to happen, just as a natural occurrence with the dollar strengthening as it is. Like, we are going to see the dollar strengthen due to the fact that the monetary policy is tightening. Right? That's just what's going to happen. How far it goes, I don't know. But if it got to the point where the globe was saying, we don't want your dollars anymore, they have to get out of their contracts. They have to get out of the dollar contract first. And that means they're going to be scrambling for those dollars in order to close those contracts so that they can be shed of the dollar altogether. That is going to cause the dollar to strengthen unlike anybody had ever possibly imagined. This is the scenario where people want to be out of the dollar. They want to get out of it altogether. That strengthening of the dollar is going to blow people away. They are not knowing what to expect from that, right? they are going to get into the dollar. They're going to think, oh man, the dollar is the place to be. It's the strongest currency of the world. Everybody should be saving in dollars. The dollar is awesome, right? At that point is when you should be out of the dollar. Do not hold on to it, because everybody is going to be wrong. A flood of dollars are going to start coming back to the United States. Those chickens are going to come home to roost, kind of thing, because people are not going to want the dollar. They're not going to have anybody to trade it with, because nobody else wants the dollar either. And the only place that they're going to be able to unload these dollars will be back in the United States. And so that's where they all come flying back into the United States, and we have that hyperinflation scenario. That is a very long road to get there. Like, that doesn't happen like that, okay? So we have plenty of indicators that will be presenting themselves before that situation, before that hyperinflation scenario takes place. And as far as I can tell, we are going to see the dollar strengthen both ways, no matter what way you go about it. If they want to get out of the dollar, it's going to strengthen. If they want the dollar, it's going to strengthen. Either way, right? If the dollar is going to fail completely, it has to spike, and then it'll collapse. I'm going to go home. Uneducated economist. You guys let me know.